But I already said that, sorry. All right, it's 102 or 103. We are here for planning interviews. We're going to start with the board reviewing questions.
So before we decide on the actual questions of the different ones that have been submitted, would it be helpful from the board's perspective if we talk about timing with our revised number of applicants as far as number of questions and time given to answer each question from a time management perspective?
I don't want to change based on the number. I just want to make a system of what we're going to ask. I think like giving more time or less time based on the number. I think if we're going to say each applicant has a set amount of time to answer, it should be consistent regardless of the interview number, the number of people being interviewed.
Oh, I agree. I'm just wondering if we want to adapt. Like, how many questions do we want to ask with how much time to respond to each question for each applicant from a time management perspective is the question I'm asking.
I think that a reasonable 2 questions from each commissioner, questionable depending on what your questions are for debate, but it seems like if we were picking 2 based on the list, I think we're kind of each of us have some comprehensive ones there, and then 2 to 3 minutes for each person to respond to the questions asked. With each person, usually we allow each person to kind of give an introduction of themselves and then a closing. Any thoughts on that, Commissioner Korn?
I'm still trying to figure out how we're going to decide which questions we're going to pick. Do we want to just start at the top like we do other things and go down and agree or disagree, or we have a lot of questions to choose from?
So I kind of had an idea of what my important 2 questions were going to be for the planning department.
Okay.
And maybe those are things that they might encompass. Some of our questions encompass a lot of the questions that might be individual, and it'll be up to the applicant to give a quality answer. For example, I think that one of the things that I've heard a lot of people wanting to hear an answer to, and I have the same kind of question, is how do you evaluate the proposed impact of land development project as it relates to the impact of property rights of those around the proposed project? I know that's a question that has come up a lot. So that was one thing that I wanted to kind of have that addressed. And then I had some very specific for zoning, but I wanted to kind of review their thoughts of what are the key elements of building a comprehensive plan, so that they have to do more work on what are those key functions of a plan. So those were 2 that I thought were, in terms of just planning, asking the planning group. Anyhow.
Okay.
What are your thoughts?
I think I don't have a problem with those 2 questions. I think they're great questions.
I agree.
So those would be the 2 that I would submit as my questions.
Okay, so are we just going to take the questions that were submitted by the planning department and just kind of put those aside and go by the questions that the 3 board members would like to ask?
I would suggest that at this point, if we want to get ours narrowed down to a group of
Some of
6.
Some of those feel like they're more generic and not specific to what we're doing here.
I think some of ours mirror some of the ones that were in the ones that were sent to us. But then some of ours are a little different. So since it's our interview, I think we should focus on the questions we'd like to ask.
Okay. So I've submitted my 2 that were accepted by the rest of the board. Are there 2 more? Does one of you want to lead with your recommendation?
So my recommendations were a little bit different, looking more at the person itself and their personality and their backgrounds. So for the planning, I would like to know if any of the applicants belong to any land use organizations or groups that may sway their opinions, making sure that we don't have any biased opinions sitting on any of the commissions. And I would also like to know if any of the applicants have ever sued Bonner County or any other municipalities, trying to get a idea for the applicants' personalities.
Okay.
I did submit another one, if the board would like to entertain it, but if I'm gonna pick two, I guess it'd be those two. My third one was, I would like to know, and some of them might be on the applications, I didn't make notes of that, but their present and past employments that may or may not come into biased opinions on sitting on the commission. That one I don't think is, if we want to stick with two, I'll stick with my original first two.
Can I ask, maybe if on your first one, if you could amend it such that it said land use organization, groups, or employment history, that would create a bias? Because I think your question is the same, you just added employment as a bias.
Okay.
And that way it would capture what your third question was in your first one, because your first one is really a question of bias. Would that capture what you were trying to
It
get?
would.
Okay, so those would be your two. Commissioner, do you have any issue with the two that Commissioner Cornish brought forward?
Nope.
All right.
I concur. Those are the
It
questions that are
is
important to
freezing
him.
in this room still, facilities.
Yeah, I think it's good.
You're trying. We got people with nosebleeds that come.
I think it's good that each commissioner be able to focus on questions that are important to them. And I will share my two for the planning commission as soon as my computer lets me back in.
Would you say?
I've got your document.
As soon as my computer lets me back in. It was-
Would you like to read it? I got it on.
No, I need to go to the right. Well, I created three different for the planning commission, the zoning commission, and the combined, so I just want to pull up the correct. Okay. Back in. And so then I would suggest to try to round out what you guys have already proposed. What do you consider to be the primary role of the planning commission, and why would you like to serve on this commission? And second, if you were appointed to the planning commission and the commission was being asked to recommend a change to the land use map that would include property that you own, would you participate in that recommendation or recuse yourself?
On your number 6, can
Yes.
we amend the word or add not just own, but have influence over, so that it's not so specific? Because sometimes people have family trust or something, and I think your point is recusing from something that they could financially benefit from. I know, and I say that because
Yeah.
I know there's been some where
Right.
it's in a grouping.
Yeah, own or have an interest in.
Yeah,
Sure.
there you go. So number 2 and number 6, any issue with the questions he brought forward?
No, I don't have any.
So do we want to
Do we-
combine this into a single document quickly, or?
We can. I was going to ask, do we want to offer, so,
We're going to do this for each of the three groups.
yeah. So while we're doing that, we can allow each person to give their introduction.
And I didn't know if you guys had an interest or not. If you just want to take your own notes. In
Are you-
the grading table.
I'm fine to do my own notes, thank you.
Okay.
Commissioner, are you combining them and then you're going to press print? Or how are you?
I can.
Are you?
I'm just going to need to confirm with you guys the language changes. So let me open. Let me start the document.
Okay. So can you concurrently do that while letting them do their introductions, or do you want to pause?
Absolutely.
All right, so who would like to start? Are we flipping a coin?
Probably neither of us.
Are the instructions going to kind of be included in?
No, yeah, this is, so we're going to do an opportunity for you to give a introduction of yourself and why you want to be on the commission, and then we're going to go back and forth between the questions. So as we ask the questions, it'll be for for example, if he gives his introduction first, then we'll give you the first question, and we'll alternate between the two, and then we'll do an ending closing with the same 2 minutes. Okay? That way it's allowing opportunity for first and last.
I'm Reg Crawford. Is this on?
It is on.
Bonner County. I've lived here since 2008. I got involved with land use in Bonner County in 2016. Prior to that, my priorities were more for water quality and water issues. My master's is in watershed science, and I started more or less working in nonprofits or government or NGO groups for water quality. Then I started following land use for the last going on 9 years, and I would like to see, I guess my interest is to be a part of improving the land use codes, the comp plan, so that the county has less risk for lawsuits and that there's less division between the homeowners and their neighbors, and so we can respect the property rights of each.
Thank you. Dave?
Dave Bowman. I have lived here since 2020, property owner since 2011. I've never been involved in anything political before I got here, voting, obviously, but I kind of got drug into the land use issues shortly after arriving here, and then I am a founding member of Keep Bonner County Rural, as I think you all know, and I'm just going to answer something because this came up in the last time I was here too, but the vision, mission, and goals of Keep Bonner County Rural: preservation of rural character of Bonner County, mission to ensure that Bonner County government upholds the goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan and complies with all zoning laws and prioritizes maintaining the rural character of Bonner County, which I should add is the overarching theme of the comprehensive plan and all the sub-area plans. And then goals to ensure that no increase in density is allowed without thorough assessment of the impact individually and cumulatively. So my interest in, I've been attending planning and zoning meetings for a long time. I've had fair amount of input, and I feel like I could contribute. And it's really to give back to the community, and a lot of the same things that she said, to reduce the conflict between the rights of property owners who want to do development and the rights of property owners whom they affect. I put this in my application, I think I have a lot of technical writing background and contractual type writing, so I think I could be pretty useful to helping with the code, and I'm familiar with the code as much as one can be without looking things up already. So, thanks.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Williams. I'm sorry, I know of your proposed questions, number 6, I have copied into our combined. Could you please point me to the second question?
Number
of
3.
your list 3. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And then we were going to, I think Commissioner Korn was going to reword one of his questions slightly. Could you please clarify that for me?
Do you belong to any land use organizations, groups, or past employment that may sway their land use opinions?
Okay, thank you.
I guess the question would be your land use opinions.
Yes. Okay, so I have question number 1, have you ever sued Bonner County or any other municipality? Question number 2, do you belong to any land use organizations, groups, or past employment that might sway your land use opinions? 3, how do you evaluate the proposed impact of land development projects as it relates to the impact of the property rights of those around the proposed project? 4, what are the key elements of a comprehensive plan? 5, what do you consider to be the primary role of the Planning Commission, and why would you like to serve on this commission? 6, if you were appointed to the Planning Commission and the commission was being asked to recommend a change to the land use map that would include property that you own or have an interest in, would you participate in that recommendation or recuse yourself?
Can question 5 be situated next to question 3? Because there seems like that will make for a flowing argument or flowing answering. That might make it easier.
Yes, would you like that before or after 3?
It doesn't matter. I just thought they were
Okay.
kind of similar.
There are some, yeah. I'll put it after 3.
All right, are we ready to go?
I will, would you like me to print a copy for each of you?
At least one.
Yeah, you can print.
Thank you.
Do you want to call out the question you have listed as number 1 for?
Sure. Question 1, have you ever sued Bonner County or any other municipality?
Guess it's my honor to go first. I filed a tort claim against Bonner County for being falsely arrested, right here, as a matter
Can I
of
ask
fact.
you to say your guys' name first before you answer it that way?
Dave Bowman. Keep Bonner County Rural, along with affected parties, has asked for judicial review of a few land use cases. That was not me personally, and it wasn't really even Keep Bonner County Rural, except on behalf of or in conjunction with affected property owners. And I think we've done that, I think 3 times, unless I've forgotten one. And 2, it was sent, 2 they were sent back for remand, which later got appealed, and 1 was sent back for remand, and we ended up losing. But none of those were not me personally.
Okay. Ms. Crawford?
I know I've never been a part of a lawsuit that sued a municipality or the county.
Okay. We'll say that's Reg Crawford.
Oh, Reg Crawford, Bonner County.
All right. Second question, do you belong to any land use organizations, groups, or past employment that might sway your land use opinions? And it'll go to you.
I'd say no again. My first job out here was throwing rake under a contractor who worked for a Department of Lands. My second job was with Tri-State Water Quality Council, which was a collaboration between Montana, Idaho, and Washington, to do water quality monitoring and do projects that would maintain the water coming from Montana all the way through to Washington. And that was, that group, I think they were done in 2013. The Idaho DEQ took over the funding with Montana State, or Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. I worked for Trout Unlimited as their bull trout program manager, which was to protect, mitigate, and enhance the bull trout species, and that was to offset the dam. So it was Vista funded, and it was in collaboration with Idaho Fish and Game. And then I worked for Project 7B, which was started as more of an education and outreach organization. And since then, I have been doing book work and shop work.
All right. Commissioner Cord, do you want to ask number 3?
Number 3. Where did I put that?
You do not want me to answer?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you answered.
I mean,
Go ahead. Sorry.
So, well, I addressed some of it in my introduction, but so could you repeat the question?
Yeah. Do you belong to any land use organizations, groups, or past employment that might sway your land use opinions?
Okay. Past employment, I ran an industrial and maritime refrigeration company for 37 years, so we didn't even deal with land hardly at all. I do belong to Keep Bonner County Rural, but I think the question of bias, I don't, first of all, you have members and have had for the last, in my time here, on both of these commissions that are extremely biased toward development. My goal really is to carry out the comprehensive plan and the zoning code in the zoning code to comply or to conform to the comp plan, which is the vision of the people. And that's my bias. I also want to quote from 676506, the Joint Commission shall provide that the area and interest within its jurisdiction are broadly represented on the commission. So you need to have that. You don't want to have either of these commissions be all developers. You don't want to have them be all keep Bonner County rural. It should be a mix, and there should be a broad diversity of views on there. And mine is to keep the county rural, but following the law and doing so and honoring people's property rights on every side of the issues. So that's my bias.
Thank you.
Number 3.
Yes.
How do you evaluate the proposed impact of land development project as it relates to the impact of the property rights of those around the proposed project?
I'm
Dave
sorry,
Bowman. So to some extent, it's going to be a case-by-case basis because you have to look at what the impacts of a particular project will be. Is it a zone change? Is it a comprehensive map change? Is it a conditional use permit? And I think where this comes up the most probably is conditional use permits. And the idea of a conditional use permit is that you can condition the use in a way that will mitigate the negative impacts to the surrounding properties. So it's real simple to do in some cases. In other cases, there are no conditions that you can put on it that are going to mitigate the impact. And you really need to weigh the property rights of the person doing the development with the property rights of their neighbors. And unlike, a right to self-defense, a right to free speech, right to due process, all of those things are non-negotiable, simple black and white rights. They must be honored. Property rights, you have to balance between individual property owners so that their rights get balanced. And that sometimes makes it a little bit tricky, but they are not the black and white rights of all the other ones that we know about, so they have to get balanced. And it's going to vary case by case. You got to take in all the facts. And you follow the law. What the law says, that's what you have to do.
Thank you.
I agree with Dave about the conditional use permits and having to evaluate. I'll talk about other code, for subdivisions and land divisions and development. I believe that the code isn't that cut and dry, and that's a problem that we have right now. We look at the revised code and would like to have it be black or white or have the answer within, but our code is widely up to interpretation in some ways, and that's problematic because that puts individuals in the position of having to determine whose rights are worth more. And it would be valuable to have the plan in place, both the comp plan and the code which it sits upon it, so that it isn't that up for interpretation.
Thank you. Commissioner Donkey, the next question.
What do you consider to be the primary role of the Planning Commission, and why would you like to serve on this commission?
Well, according to the county, I guess the primary part is to handle the code amendments and the comp plan right now. Zoning is handling everything else. And so they work on the comp plan, they hear comp plan amendment hearings, and then they work on revisions to the revised code. As I said in my introduction, I'm interested in being on it to see that we can make this code that is a little more representative of the vision for Bonner County as the comp plan dictates, and to maintain that code in a way that is uniform throughout. Thanks.
What she said. No, Dave Bowman. I'm interested in, it's quasi-legislative, right, to write the comp plan and write the zoning code. And I'll say this too, that it's a little unorthodox, is my understanding in the planning world, to have the planning commission actually do all this writing. Normally, it's going to be, you get the vision of the people, which comes through the sub-area plans. You either have someone in the planning department or you contract it out to write the comprehensive plan, and then it goes to the planning commission, and they work their way through it, and then you kind of niggle it back and forth until you get it right, and then it goes to the board. And my understanding is that that's typically the same process with the code. That's not how Bonner County's doing it. As Reg said, the zoning code it needs a lot of work, and a lot of you guys recently addressed a couple of R10s to R5s, and you know how that is written in the Chapter 3 of the zoning code. It basically says whatever you want it to say. If you can make it go your way either side of the issue. The code shouldn't be like that. So, and I think I have a knowledge and background experience to help with that, and I want to help.
All right. What are the key elements of a comprehensive plan? That's to you, Mr. Bowman.
The key elements are, well, you have, Idaho says, 17 components, I think. So you've got transportation, schools, hazardous areas, utilities, and all of those things come together, schools, transportation. What was the question? Key elements
What are
of?
the key elements of it?
Well, the key elements are, I think I just said part of it is supposed to be the vision of the people. So in this case, it started with the sub-area plans. There's other ways that could be done. But to find out what the people want their county to look like 10, 20, 50 years ahead. And then that gets combined with the knowledge of planning that should be coming from planning experts. And the two of those combine and then get worked out to make a comprehensive plan. And then ultimately that all feeds into the land use plan, which then informs the zoning code. But the goal is to carry out the vision of the people and then provide the foundation of the zoning code.
Thank you. That was more of what I was looking for, not the 17 lists in there. So I was like, maybe I need to reword the way I say that question.
Reg Crawford, I guess that saves me the trouble of answering. No, I will say that when I try to explain it to people who aren't following land use, I tell them that the state of Idaho in its code gives a lot of leeway to the counties and expects counties to be providing their own code and manage their own land. And so the Idaho code sits here and tells them what they have to have and how to do it. And then the county writes its comp plan, which right now we're working on goals, objectives, implementation, which should have been done, which they did already and we're redoing because it got done first when it should have been done at this stage right now. But once that's in place, which again, yeah, did it just Tuesday? And so once that gets done, then you have exactly what Dave says. Then you have the layer on top of that, which is the Bonner County Revised Codes, which is the implementation of the comprehensive plan to some extent, to dumb it down. Thank you.
Commissioner Court.
If you were appointed to the Planning Commission and the commission was being asked to recommend a change to the land use map that would include property that you own or have interest in, would you participate in that recommendation or recuse yourself?
I would 100% recuse myself, and thank you for asking. I've been watching land use hearings for way too long, too much time. And the one that sticks out the most to me is 2 administrations ago when it was determined that even campaign donations are considered a pecuniary benefit to commissioners. And so something so small as a campaign donation should also be cause for recusal. And what we've seen is members of past planning and zoning put forth comprehensive plan changes that are amendments that uniquely benefit their own property. I can think of 2 different occasions, 3 different members, 1 currently sitting. And we've seen I would say way too much personal investment by members of the planning and zoning commissions when they were together and when they were apart. I definitely believe in recusal for all of that. Thanks.
Dave Bowman, same as Raj, 100%, I would recuse from anything that even if it appeared to be an issue, I would. And I'm going to quote from, again, 6506. Member employee of a governing board, commission, or joint commission shall not participate in any proceeding or action when the member or employee or his employer, business partner, business associate, or any person related to him by affinity or consanguinity within the second degree has an economic interest in the procedure or action, and it goes on. But I mean, if it even starts to look hinky, you should be out of it.
So those are our 6 questions, so we'll move to a closing from each person and then deliberation by the board. Key open, so you go first.
Well, actually,
Or Reg?
I'd be happy to let her go, but I don't really know what else to say in closing. I think it's pretty much been said, but I appreciate your support. I would like to do this. It's a way to serve my community. I think I have the skills, the desires, the time, and I would like to do it, so.
Reg?
I would like to say it is a huge commitment, and I thank everyone who has sat on this commission before, because when I was considering applying, 3 years is a long time, and it's a lot of work, and I've been to these hearings, and some of them are very long. It's a lot to ask of somebody, and I'm kind of on the fence. It's because of the commitment, but I'm willing to do it because I have this interest in it, and I want to see Bonner County become a better place. I would also like to say that I think Dave would do a great job, and I'm happy to be a part of it. Thanks.
Thank you.
In full disclosure, I pressured the heck out of her to do this because.
All right. So it is 1:34. We've gone through all the questions, and so now it's time for the board to deliberate on the candidates put forward for planning.
Actually, we
Do
have
you have
deliberation at the end of the agenda because we actually have a mixed group as well.
On planning, you do.
Yeah,
have
so we
planning and
intentionally
zoning.
have a deliberation at the end of the agenda.
Yeah, that agenda came out a little wonky where you had
Yeah.
the exec section after each group.
Yeah, the exec session was if there was something regarding a personal matter that the board wanted to discuss with an applicant. But beyond that, the deliberations at the end, because otherwise we would be trying to deliberate about decisions without having conducted all the interviews for a particular opening.
So does a board member have cause to believe that there is a need for an executive session regarding the interview of Reg Crawford and Dave Bowman?
I don't think so.
I do not.
Okay. So we have completed the interviews for planning, and our up next, it doesn't start until 2 o'clock, so we will go in recess until 2 o'clock.
That was 1:30.
No, next is each block
Yeah.
got,
We had a larger pool of candidates to start with, so we had to build our schedule appropriately.
I did ask everyone to get here 10 minutes early, so if they all show up.
And division
we are coming back from a recess, and we will move into reviewing our planning or people who selected planning or zoning. There are two applicants. First, the board will finalize the questions that we're going to ask, and I'll tell you the process. What we'll do is each of you will get 2 minutes to give an introduction. Then we're going to just go back and forth asking questions. Each of us will have submitted 2 questions. And then at the end, we'll close with you guys giving kind of a closing. You'll have, I think it was 3 minutes to answer each question asked. So that's your opportunity to kind of tailor what you want to say based on the questions that we're putting forward. You'll hear the questions that we're going to ask you. So for Commissioner Williams, the 2 questions that I'm putting forth, now that I think about it, I said the planning, those ones were the zoning questions I had. I'm going to knock that off because those will go just for zoning.
Okay.
I will ask the same 2 that I asked for the planning.
Okay.
How's that?
So I will,
Actually, I'm gonna lie to you. What is the difference between the zoning and land use planning? That'll be a question since they want to be either or. And then I'll ask what are the key components of a zoning ordinance on that one? We'll leave that
what is the difference between the zoning and,
there. Land use planning.
all right. And then, I'm sorry, what did you say about the second one?
What are the key components of a zoning ordinance?
Okay. Okay, I have yours 2 down.
Okay. And I'll let him go. I've got a different county is asking our county a quick question on a budget thing here.
I'm gonna use the same 2 questions throughout the whole process.
Okay. So I have your 2 questions from the last group first. Then I have Commissioner Williams 2. And then just look at mine again quickly. Okay. So then the 2 questions I'd like to ask are, when considering a conditional use permit application, should the permit be granted if all the identified negative impacts cannot be mitigated by adding conditions of approval? And then the same conflict of interest questions I had for the
Okay.
first one.
All right.
Good.
Okay.
Then I will print this.
Director Gabel, can we ask you to grab his print? Thank you.
Don't be confused. I'm building a single document with all the questions to give the director afterward. So it's going to be the 6 questions at the top. The ones below that are from the last group.
All right, with that, we will open up for introductions, and we'll start with Mr. Mooney.
Hi, I'm Brendan Mooney. Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Okay. I'm Brendan Mooney. I live in Sagal, Idaho,
Thank you.
down there near Camp Bay. Been here since 2020. 2021 is when we moved out officially, bought the land down there in 2020. And my profession is IT director, IT manager. I work for Safe Harbor Marinas as evidence there. And I've been around government and working with government for quite a long time, since about 2012. I actually worked for a city delegate back in Virginia. That's where the military dropped me off back in 2009. And from there, I've been involved, whether it's at Civic League, where we had kind of a civic council there, or I've been involved in other facets of local government, talking with people, understanding regulations, writing regulations, helping write legislation, working on items to try and better the community overall while listening to opposing sides on each side. So I've been around government for quite a while. I enjoy this area. I absolutely love it here. Good Lord let us out here, and we're just so thankful to be in such a beautiful area. I want to make it stay beautiful. Don't want this to turn into another place. This is a special place because Idaho really is that special. Bonner County, obviously, really love. So, anything else I'm missing from introductions that you guys were looking for?
Nope. All right. Mr. Wadowski.
Assuming that it's on. My name is Larry Medowski.
It might be on. I turned it off when I was done.
Oh, see?
When I saw you coming, I turned it.
Somehow I believe that, Dave.
That's the downside of panel. That's a way to get rid of
Mine's been off.
competition.
Mine's was off.
Oh, wow.
Oh, well, go ahead and do it over again.
No, you're under a microphone, so we're good.
Stop me.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've been a resident of Bonner County for about 4 years, maybe a touch over. My history, I had my application. Basically, I've been around planning and local government and state government for that matter. A lot of my life. I took a break, and then after I came up here, I was meant to retire completely and do all the fun things that retired people do. And then I got involved in a couple of land use issues, and I'm thinking to myself, why is this happening the way that it's happening? And so I began to get more involved, and I saw an opportunity that there are some things that really could use services such as mine. I'm not the only one qualified, I'm sure, but I thought that I would offer my services if they're so desired. I come out of the fire service originally in my adult life, did a lot of different things, ended up in the real estate and business and mortgage business. I've done construction, I've done a lot of comprehensive plan change in my profession, done a lot of construction, got into adult vocational education several years ago, a lot of years ago, and then retired after I sold my last school. It was a small university in Southern California. So here I am.
All right. Thank you. Commissioner Corn, do you want to ask the first question?
Okay. Have you ever sued Bonner County or any other municipality?
No.
No.
And you guys don't have to turn off and on. You can just
Oh, I'm
leave
sorry,
it on.
I spoke incorrectly. I was involved in a lawsuit with the city of Lathrop in California over eminent domain.
They were doing eminent domain to you?
Yes, they were taking a piece of our property, and we were arguing over value. And so to get into a more negotiating situation, we had to file suit, and we did, and then we settled it.
Do you belong to any land use organizations, groups, or past employment that might sway your land use opinions? So we'll start with you, Larry.
No.
No, I do not.
Commissioner Donkey.
What's the difference between zoning and land use planning?
So zoning, from my understanding, and I'm going to be first and foremost, I know I can always look this kind of stuff up as, as progresses, but my understanding was zoning versus land use planning. Zoning is kind of set there. This is what we have determined as how we want to split up the county. This is actually zoned this way. Land use planning is kind of, hey, we're looking at maybe reconsidering certain zoning areas, and that way we can actually maybe reallocate that land for different types of areas, for different types of using. Maybe instead of, R5, it's going to be R1, R10, or commercial. Certain areas, just understanding those, whereas zoning is kind of what is set there in stone, but I just kind of maybe a little bit off on that.
Thank you. Larry?
If I understand the question correctly, are you referring to land use itself, or are you referring to comprehensive plan as opposed to the zoning ordinance?
So we have zoning and you have planning, and so I'm asking for you to explain what you understand the difference between zoning versus our planning. So we have zoning ordinance.
Okay, well, you have, planning is the overall configuration of the issue, that all of it is comprised under land use planning. But under that, you have the comprehensive plan, and you also have the zoning plan. And one of the major differences is that the comprehensive plan is more of a blueprint, of a specific blueprint of how you want things done. If you I know Ron has some construction background. If you have a set of prints, if you have a blueprint, it's telling you how you're going to build that building. Gives you detail on how the connections are to be made in some situations and so on and so forth. It's a very specific document. And the same way goes for a comprehensive plan. A comprehensive plan is a specific document. I've heard it referred to in hearings before as this big, broad brush stroke. Nothing could be farther from the truth. It is not a broad brush stroke. It is a very specific plan. It's kind of like a blueprint that you follow. The zoning then on top of that is the implementation of what you've described in the comprehensive plan. So as an example, if you have an area that the comprehensive plan says is agriculture 10, and somebody within that area wants to develop 5-acre lots, they would be prohibited from doing that unless they change the comprehensive plan to be consistent to what their application for the 5-acre lots is going to be. You can't have a new subdivision, a new creation of the 5-acre designation if it's inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. Zoning follows the comprehensive plan. If that, and I'll elaborate further if you want me to. I don't know if I've been clear or not, but.
Thank you. Commissioner Donkey.
What are the key components of a zoning ordinance?
So they go to Larry first.
I did not prepare for that. The key elements of a zoning ordinance. A zoning ordinance should be somewhat broad, but yet specific. You're describing, in the ordinance, you're describing the implementation of the zoning characteristics. What is allowable? You have a table within your zoning package that lays out things that are acceptable uses and non-acceptable uses and conditional uses and in-between uses and everything else that you want covered. That's all contained in your ordinance. And so that's one of the components of your ordinance, is to support the specifics of what you want that zone to look like. I would say that's the major part. You also take into consideration the effect on neighborhood and historically, is this consistent to the way you want to see growth happen or non-growth, whatever the case may be. But it really is a guide. It's the implementation of the zone ordinance or the zoning itself.
Okay.
Mr. Domke, can you repeat that question for me, please?
Yes. What are the key components of a zoning ordinance?
So, a zoning ordinance, being that it's law or it's a regulation there, the key components are making sure that the areas are actually segmented in a way that makes sense. You want to make sure that you're not putting a school next to a lead smelting plant or something along those lines. You want to make sure that the areas make sense for what you have it zoned as. So when you look at reconsidering zoning part of the planning area, that it makes sense in accordance with your guys' strategic master plan. With the master plan, you kind of go, okay, we've kind of designated this area as commercial. We kind of know that we don't want to put a residential, complex in there or something along those lines. You want to make sure also that the areas that are going to be developed are not going to be disturbing the natural resources. If it's hugging up right against a national forest land, you don't want to put something on there that could potentially have environmental disaster waiting to happen, right? Also encounter certain areas of making sure you're in accordance with certain federal and state and local laws, that you have certain amenities there to be able to do that part of community impact. If they want to put a major shopping mall out in the middle of nowhere, what's the going to be community impact to those kind of things? Because you don't want to have traffic in other problematic areas. And even be a small thing where, having the right turn area is going to be important. So understanding that those certain setbacks, certain areas where this type of construction is allowed, this type of construction is not allowed, these types of, just making sure that that they're close enough to emergency services, that there's, power nearby, and they're not going to zone something commercial out in the middle of nowhere. It doesn't make much sense. It might be better zone farming. So just kind of having a strategy on where this is to make the community flow in a more natural path. I've been to communities where I'm like, why did they put this next to that? Like, that makes no sense. Who was on zoning to think that would be, or planning to make sure that would happen like that? So that's kind of the key elements on those items.
Thank you. Commissioner Corn?
When considering a conditional use permit application, should the permit be granted if all the identified negative impacts cannot be mitigated by adding conditions of approval?
That's first to you, Larry.
Yeah. Mr. Corn, can you repeat that one more time so
Sure.
I actually answer?
So when considering a conditional use permit application, should the permit be granted if all of the identified negative impacts cannot be mitigated by adding conditions of approval?
That's on a case-by-case basis, honestly, and it really determines based on community feedback. For example, I remember the bike park being the bike track being such a contentious issue, and you got to look at those with a fine-tooth comb. You cannot broad brush that whatsoever. You really have to look, if they can't meet that and then they want to throw on something else, what is the potentiality to cause strife unnecessarily? And we got to also look at from the other side is respecting the person's land rights. So it's a kind of a mixture. If they can mitigate some of those items, and they ask for a special way of doing that versus what we recommended, we should be able to look at that. But I can't give a broad brush yes no. It really should be something that we kind of look at as case by case. I imagine those don't come by as often. If they're always all the time, then maybe we need to look at the regulation as a whole to kind of streamline certain items to make sure we don't have these kind of issues come up. Because I know it takes a lot of time, material, manpower, and et cetera, to go through each of those little things. So just kind of I try to answer your question, but I didn't give a clear, it depends.
Generally speaking, my initial thought would be no. That if you can't meet the conditions, then the answer is no. Sometimes it's difficult to look an applicant in the eye when they have worked on this project for an extended period of time, or that they feel that their private property rights are being violated. But there are times you have to look at them and say, I'm sorry, but the answer is no. You cannot do that. In Bonner County, one of the things that I've noticed is that there's very little, if any, enforcement on CUPs. That would make me tend to believe that CUP should not be approved. If you have a condition that that an outdoor venue is that's going to allow parties and so on, that there has to be a decibel level that it cannot be exceeded and so on and so forth. then it has to be able to be enforced. If you're not going to enforce it, don't condition it. It doesn't make any sense. All it does is create problems. This guy got by with it, how come I can't get by with it? And it just escalates, and it's not good. If you have conditions such as an insurance, a higher insurance requirement, instead of a standard $1 million policy, maybe that particular use, you want to have a $5 million policy. That's something that you can condition, and it's a condition that has to be met prior to them being able to get their permit to move forward with the rest of their venue. So those kinds of conditions are okay, but when you have conditions that are on the property for the use, for the general use of the property, I think that at least at this point in time in Bonner County, the answer should be no. Either find a way to do it within the zone where it's a permitted use, or you need to have enforcement. If you're not going to have enforcement, the answer should be no.
Commissioner Donkey, do you want to ask the final question?
If you were appointed to the Planning Commission and the commission was being asked to recommend a change to the land use map that would include property that you own or have interest in, would you participate in that recommendation or recuse yourself?
I believe that if the law doesn't state it, it should, that would be a conflict of interest, and yes, you would have to recuse yourself. It makes good common sense regardless if the law is there or not, but it should be. That's my understanding of recusal. That would also extend even to the point of not having discussion with other commissioners regarding your application or your use. And for the most part, I would say that you should not even bring forth a application in a jurisdiction in which you have some authority. In the Board of Zoning adjustment that I sat on, in that particular county, the rule was at the time, I don't know if it still is, but the rule was at the time that you couldn't have any conversation with any of your fellow board members regarding it, and that if it was something that you had financial interest in, generally speaking, you were prohibited. The county prohibited you from being able to do anything. I don't want to say that I'm certainly not easily intimidated, and I think most commissioners are not. But it's a little bit odd if one of you were to have an issue that's coming before this board for your other two commissioners not to have some feeling of empathy for what you're trying to do. And so I think that it's just a bad situation. If I were looking at being able to do development work or to do something in those areas, the answer should be no.
Thank you.
So I would also say that, yeah, you should recuse yourself immediately when those kind of things come up. Or if you work for a company, so if I had my company, they were looking at maybe perhaps buying a piece of property out here, et cetera, I would need to identify like, hey, I have no financial gain, I'm not even part of it, but you need to know that, hey, this is part of it, part of the package of, I work for a marina company. If they decide to buy a marina up here, I'm going to tell you, hey, I can't be on anything involving this particular item because that would be a conflict of interest. Ethics are very, high regard to me. I get very upset when I see government acting in a way that would be kind of remissive to what the intent of the law in our republic is. Really upsets me when I, hear which, I always joke, which senator's son is getting the kickback for this, blah, blah, blah. And we joke tongue in cheek, but unfortunately, time and time again, we've seen that where you see there and like, I know why that got picked. It's so-and-so who did so-and-so that knew so-and-so. And by four ways, they figure out a way in there, whether through trust, nested trust, LLCs, all that kind of garbage. You should have some ethics when you stand on something like this. That's a key for anything. I have no problem explaining that. Being former military, sitting there and saying, hey, I have this interest, I have this going forth, being truthful and honest, That's kind of my MO when it came to having a top secret clearance. You can't do that and say, oh, I have no ethics, right? So take this stuff very seriously. So to, answer the question is, yes, I would recuse myself, inform you of any possible, hey, or if I live in that area, I would at least let you know, hey, this is in effect, Camp Bay Road, for example, near where I live. I'd tell you, hey, I'm on this, I have a personal interest. Even if I have no financial gain, I'm just going to let you know, just out of respect. I have too much respect for the process and the government to do anything shady to have undue influence. And that's no problem. That'd be, that's just common sense.
Thank you. All right, you guys have answered all 6 questions the commissioners have put forth. So now is the time for your closing for each of you to say whatever you want in your last 3 minutes. So, to you, Larry.
I thank you for the for the process. I know that this is the first time that you've handled appointments to commissions and boards in this manner, and I thank you for thinking sincerely about the process you're going through and making sure that it's fair and transparent. I think that the uniqueness of
I'm going to
my
pause you for 1 second and see what there's too many fingers pointing more at.
Taking a short recess. We'll plan to reconvene at 2:30.
We will start over with the closing from Larry of his interview for being on the Planning and/or Zoning Commission.
Okay. Thank you again for the process that you've developed to be transparent in your selection of commissioners. All the boards and commissions are very important for the function that they all are part of. In my particular situation, I have experience sitting on a board of zoning adjustment. I know what that's like. I know how to listen and sort out testimony. I think that it's important that you take a look at a very broad approach when you're making a decision. How does it affect the neighborhood? How does it affect the environment? How does it affect other land use decisions that are being made in the area? What kind of precedent are you setting? All of those things need to be taken into account, and I have those skills to be able to do that. I've also sat on the other side of that bench where I was doing development, nothing of any major substance, but doing development and having to get comprehensive plan modifications and zoning modifications and conditional use permits and so on. So I understand the applicant side of the coin as well. I love Bonner County. How we got here is a long, boring story that I'm not going to share, but the bottom line is that I would like to see the planning issues in Bonner County get resolved and get resolved well. There's a lot of money that's spent from time to time on litigation that I think is meaningless. It just doesn't, it's so easy to avoid much of that kind of stuff. I will say with some amount of pride that in the years that I served on a board of zoning adjustment, we never had one issue go to litigation, not one. And part of the reason is because the plan itself, the documents, the ordinances were written well and specific, and the decisions we made thoroughly, having taken a look at a lot of different issues, a lot of different things that go into that decision, and making it well. So anyhow, thank you.
Okay.
I want to say also thank you for allowing this opportunity. Taking time out of your busy days. I know there's many things obviously going on in the county that you could be doing right now, and so I thank you for taking the time to actually do this and being invited to have this opportunity. And a good qualified candidate pool as well. And so which way you choose, choose well. Here's why I might think I'm the possibly best candidate for this opportunity is I have a broad-based background. I looked at things from a macro version of, 50,000-foot view. When I was IT director over at the library district at Independent Taxing Authority, I understood the left and right limitations of what I could and couldn't do. I know I'd also work hand in hand with sister departments. So if there's an area, like for example, we were looking at putting some new areas for broadband out here, and I was working with the Land and Bridge downstairs, Road and Bridge, apologize, and working with them, saying, hey, I don't know your job, but can you help me? I want to make sure I understand what we can do. So working together, one thing I look in local government and people get frustrated is that we're all on the same team. We all live here. We all want to have a beautiful county. There's very few people that want to just destroy this area and leave, So knowing that we all kind of have that same background of, I know that Asia wants the best for the county along with Brian or along with Ron. How we get there is where we disagree, but we can be respectful in those areas, right? And so knowing that, going in and looking at these kind of things systematically is really important. The other thing that's really important when looking at, a good candidate is being able to take yourself outside of any drama. I'm not, I don't have a real estate background or anything like that and I think that's a positive because I can look at it from fresh eyes to be able to look at things with a different view. I might point out awkward questions of like, hey, what about this? And be like, oh my gosh, I didn't even consider that. And so these are important aspects, either on planning or zoning. Either one sounds fun. I'd say planning would definitely be, I like to use in future planning to help build the library district's comprehensive plan. So I'm understanding of plannings on how to do that. But either way, I have a legacy of service, being former military, then getting into the defense world and serving our nation here further. This is just an extension of what I can do to help serve our great community. When I moved out here, I didn't just go, well, I moved from Virginia, so I'm just going to walk away and just pretend like nothing ever happens. I get involved in the community because it's for my, son's needs, to help him have a better community. So I can be, hey, Dad at least tried, so that's kind of important to me. And that's something I would look and serve you well and say, hey, if you guys give me guidance and say this is what we see, if I can have a respectful agreement or disagreement and we can have dialogue, that's perfect. If we have discourse, that's perfect. So that's kind of what I feel I think would be a great aspect to bring, and no litigation. That's the key component. I try and be kind, well, firm, but kind. I don't, I'm not gonna, be mean to someone just to be mean because I have some sort of authority. No, we all have the same authority. So, thank you again for the time.
Thank you. Before we end, I want to confirm, what time did we tell people to arrive? Was it 10 minutes before the time?
Yes.
So my proposal is at 2:50 we reconvene and then we can get our questions done at 2:50, because there are still some people in the 3 o'clock slot that aren't in this room, but they have some minutes to get up here. Does the
Sounds
board
good.
have an issue with that? All right, so we will go in recess until 2:50. There you go. Set your next 2:50 and we're coming back from recess, and we will start with going over the questions that we want to ask of those who are applying to be on the zoning commission. So Commissioner Korn, you're going to ask the same questions.
Yes.
So
So I have those.
question 1 and 2 will remain the same. Commissioner Williams will ask question 4 and 5.
That's from your original list, correct?
Yeah, original. What is the difference between the zoning and land use?
Gotcha.
And then
Sounds good.
Commissioner-
Zoning, okay. And then I have,
Gonna say, you gotta get up front. Oh, and she's wearing do you need a shawl or something? Okay,
I have the cup question again,
okay.
and I have a new one, which was number 6 from my original zoning commission questions. I don't know if you have that in front of you.
I had it on my computer, but
Okay.
I'm good with
So
whatever
you
you
guys
want.
good with that?
Yep.
Okay.
So you want to press print?
Then
And
I'll
so
print this.
So my request will be there's more, do we have an answer from Kevin? Okay, so Kevin isn't going to be here. So we've got,
I don't see any joint up.
so we've got Boyles, Borisov, Mock, Johnson, and Cossett. So before each of you speak, say your name, because it's not like the other ones where there was 2. That way it's very clear as to who's speaking. So the way that this is going to work is each of you will have 3 minutes to give an introduction as to why you want to be on the zoning commission. Then the board will go through the 6 questions that we've asked, so you'll each get your 3 minutes to give an answer to those questions. And then at the end, you'll each get 3 minutes to do a closing, and then the board will go into deliberation on all of the interviews. Do you want?
Questions?
And then there is going to be a question, if I remember, Director Gabel, somebody else isn't going to renew, so there's going to be another planning seat.
No, as of
Was
this
it-
morning, we had a resignation from Mr. Bob Clark, or Robert Clark. His term is up next year, I believe, so he's resigned with an effective date of October 1st.
Thank
We'll
you.
have seat A is open right as of this morning for a 1-year term, essentially.
From the peanut gallery, somebody's telling me they can't hear the commissioner's FYI.
Were we on mute?
That's right.
Yeah. It's like magic. So who else is on, is there someone on Zoom? Because are they on YouTube?
We have a couple of folks that are like on Zoom watching.
I think that's the question is, can
Is
they
there,
hear
can
us
they
right
hear,
now?
can we confirm, because I can't, so can someone raise their hand if they can hear? So people are raising their hand. So let's go to Jonna, unmute yourself, can you hear?
Yes, I can.
All right,
Hey guys, this is Susan, and I can hear you, but it's different than it was last time, and I can barely hear you. So I didn't know if you changed something.
okay, can you hear clearly now?
I can hear you clearly, but it's just barely hear you, and I've got the volume on the highest that it can go. So the settings are the same. So yeah, I don't know what's going on, but I guess just continue. And I don't know if like a mic got turned off or something.
Jonna, can you barely hear us?
No, I can hear well right now.
Okay, maybe it's just on my side then.
I just got somebody on YouTube so they can hear, okay?
Okay, all right.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry, we're gonna say that that's a one-off. Okay, so the board has a position that will exist from 10/1/2005 through 9/30/2006 on the planning department. That person is coming from District 1. Okay, so with that, I'm gonna shift and kind of alternate for who we're gonna, so as we go through questions, not the same person doesn't get to go first, we're just gonna go randomly through, all right? So, but we're going to start with Michelle, and go ahead and give your introduction. We'll need to pass the microphones that way, and make sure that the green button's on there. There we go.
Michelle Johnson. Michelle Johnson, Bonner County resident. I live down in Cocolala. I am interested in being a part of the zoning commission. I want to be a part of the solution. I know that there's a lot of concern and a lot of distrust for what's happening in the county. I want to be part of the solution to restore the community's trust back into our planning and zoning, our commissioners. I have watched a lot of hearings and have seen some things that make me kind of question, and I understand why people are concerned. And again, I want to be a part of that solution, and how can we improve our process? I believe that the worksheets that are being used are an incredible first step. There is the consistency of the decisions, the thought processes, and I'm hoping over time with all of the boards using these sheets, this will help reduce the amount of litigation that has happened with the county. And in the event something does go to litigation, the county has done their due diligence, and I would like to be a part of improving the rapport with the county and the community and represent our community.
All right, thank you. Next.
I'm Joe Mock. I've lived in Bonner County for a little over 5 years now. I guess I gotta be real blunt. The zoning commission can do better than it has been doing. I was involved in with a group where there was essentially a spot zoning issue that was in our neighborhood, and it was absolutely ludicrous that we heard a zoning commission vote 100% in favor of the spot zoning. It was only through the grace of the commissioners saying, no, that should have been a comp plan change, that we escaped having a gas station built in a residential 5 zone. And it's that kind of thing that has gone on in the zoning commissions that I want to put an end to. And that's why I'm interested.
Thank you.
I'm Wendy Cosette, Priest River resident. My husband and I purchased property in 2021, and we began living here full-time in 2022. I was a Spokane resident for 38 years, but I did grow up on the East Coast, but I looked forward every summer. I spent 2 weeks in this beautiful part of the country, the Rathdrum Prairie, Priest Lake, Priest River area. My grandfather built a cabin in the early 1920s, so my family ties are very deep, and this area is very, very special to me. I would agree you would have to be living under a rock and lived here for the last 3 years to not see that we're dealing with a tremendous amount of growth. This area is going to grow. That's just a fact. I guess how it grows, how that can be managed, is very important to people's quality of life and the reason that they came here to begin with. It is a rural area. My background and my entire career was spent in the built environment, and I did find myself involved with projects on the commercial end that oftentimes I would ask myself, is this a good place for this project? So just becoming an adult, becoming a property owner, doing my career, I have, over the many, many years, just come to realize how important planning and zoning are. Beautiful, functioning, livable areas don't just happen organically. They take a lot of work, a lot of collaboration. And I'm just at a point in my life, my career is slowing down. My children are pretty much raised, if you can ever say that about your kids. And I'd like to give back to the community that I really feel blessed to be a part of.
Dmitry.
My name is Dmitry Borisov. I'm a Bonner County resident. I have been a resident for almost 25 years. I decided to run for the zoning because when I ran for county commissioner, I do my research and I went and read the comprehensive plan, and then I started comparing things that I saw was happening at the county, what I read, and it was frustrating. So my reason basically for running is I would like to see Bonner County succeed. I would like to present to commissioners the best information available and the best research done by zoning, so commissioners can make an informed decision in the best interest of the county. And I would like to see also, probably the biggest thing is that property rights of all landowners are addressed and not just a selected few.
Thank you. Mr. Boyles?
Thank you. Colton Boyles. I'm a lawyer. I practice primarily in the areas of general counsel, business advice, estate planning, and governmental entity representation. And I'm interested in this position because I don't want a political activist wielding the sword of government and making local real estate decisions. I want someone who's going to be very calm, logical, level-headed, that will apply the zoning criteria fairly to all applications. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you. Commissioner Donkey, do you want to ask the first question?
Who would you like me to look? Where did you want to start?
Oh, well, just, she went first, and so we can go to Mr. Mock.
Have you ever sued Bonner County or any other municipality?
No. Joe Mock, no.
Are we just going straight?
Yep, you're going to go straight across and then back to Michelle.
Wendy Cosette? No, I have not.
And then your microphone stays on that side.
Dmitry Borisov, no, I have not.
Colton Boyles, in my personal capacity, I've never sued any governmental entity.
Michelle Johnson, yes, I am part of a group that is involved in litigation currently.
Commissioner Korn?
Do you belong to any land use organizations, groups, or past employment that may sway your land use opinions?
Ms. Cossett?
Wendy Cosette. I will just clarify that my career path is waning. I currently have one design project in Priest River, but I don't see any conflict. And I certainly, if I was working with somebody in a capacity for my job, if it were to come before the board, I would certainly recuse myself.
Thank you, Mrs. Cosette. Mr. Borisov?
Dmitry Borisov, no, I do not belong to any group's organization except being a property owner.
Would you mind repeating the question, Commissioner Korn? Was it Commissioner Domke's question?
Is that my question?
Yeah,
Your
he's
question,
asking
I
you to
just
repeat.
asked if.
Did I read it?
Yeah.
I read it.
You read it, then you can reread it.
Have you ever sued, I'm sorry, yes, no, you asked the next question.
So
I'm sorry, I've gotten a little confused because the
the
questions
question
came
belongs
from
to
all three
Commissioner
commissioners,
Korn.
but we're asking each other's questions.
I thought so, but is
I
that okay?
apologize, I was
So
taking notes.
you're reading
and
your own
I'm-
question.
So,
How's that?
You're reading your question too.
do you belong to any land use organizations, groups, or past employment that might sway your land use opinions?
No.
Sorry for the confusion.
No worries, thank you.
Michelle Johnson, no.
They broke it.
Irreparable damage.
It's Joe Mock, and the only LooseNet group that I belong to is a email list server that has about 400 people on it that deals in land use issues. It's known as the Bonner County Rural Lifers. That's the only thing, and it's an email list server, that's it. It's to alert us to hearings and what have you.
Okay. All right. Question number 3, and we'll start with Mr. Borisov. What is the difference between zoning and land use planning?
Land use basically has to do with economic development, and zoning has to do with the rules and regulations that apply with the land. That's simple.
The zoning function is a quasi-judicial proceeding which is meant to engage in fact-finding and conduct an analysis and reach a conclusion that is a recommendation essentially to the commissioners, which have the authority under state law to make these decisions. Planning has a different function, which is essentially to, I think, sort of point the vision of the county, and that sort of sets the blinders upon which the zoning commission would operate.
Michelle Johnson. Zoning, to me, is looking at what is allowed in a particular area versus specifically like residential, rural residential, commercial, ag forest, looking and utilizing the codes. Planning is more, I would have to agree, kind of the vision, where do we want Bonner County to go in the future?
Joe Mock, the planning commission does a long-term view of land use in the county. Zoning commission follows the county code, implements that, the land use regulations that the county has, building site standards, and also impact mitigation.
Wendy Cosette. Yes, my understanding is that zoning is a quasi-judicial system, relying on codes and law and using the comprehensive plan as a guide, and planning is a bigger overall picture for land use, and I guess that's all.
Okay. Commissioner Donkey.
Question 4. What are the key components of a zoning ordinance?
Key components of a zoning ordinance. So is this a question from the perspective like the commissioners adopting a new zoning ordinance, or is this from the zoning commission interpreting the ordinance?
So the zoning commission is treated as you're suggesting a zoning ordinance change. What are the key components?
Well, the key components I read are listed in 12.111 A through L. They're pretty comprehensive. I would cite those, generally protecting property rights, adequate public facilities, economy, environmental features, agriculture, urban development, undue concentration of population, ensuring development is compatible with physical characteristics, protecting life, fish, wildlife, undue water and air pollution, and allow the school districts and other entities to participate. So I would just say my answer is baked right into the ordinance. I hope that's what you're looking for in the question.
What are the key components of a zoning ordinance?
I believe the key components in a zoning ordinance need to be clear and concise definitions. If there's terms within the ordinance, that leads to a lot of varying interpretations, which could again potentially open the county up for litigation. So having that clear definition that everybody is in agreement on, I think, is the biggest factor. But also again to looking at the zoning ordinances and how do they pertain to the particular area, such as your residential zones, your commercial zones, your ag forest.
Joe Mock, and a county code for zoning would have land use regulation in it, building standards, site standards, and impact regulations.
Wendy Cosette. I believe what I read last night would be that it encompasses all kinds of things, but at the core, it is about protecting the health and safety and well-being of citizens of Bonner County, taking into consideration environmental impacts, impacts to our infrastructure. It is cited, and the first gentleman that spoke, I think, did cover them. So reiterate that.
Thank you, Boris. I'll just try to name a few. The first one is to address people's property rights. The second one would be to preserve the prime ag land, the forest, basically the nature, and then also to see or to keep county on the track for the proper growth and development. Like urban developments should be only happening in the area, like in the cities area, or sorry, I'm losing my track here. So basically, it has to do, I would say, with property rights, nature, and the fair representation for all landowners. I'm going to repeat myself.
When considering a conditional use permit application, should the permit be granted if the identified negative impacts cannot be mitigated by adding conditions of approval? I think we're back to
Joe Mock. No.
Wendy Cosat, I would say in general, no, but I do think every case is unique and possibly there could be some reasons to not say no, but in general, I would say probably no.
If I have interest in the property, I should, no.
Let me go back to the question, because the question was, when considering a conditional use permit application, should the permit be granted if all identified negative impacts cannot be mitigated by adding conditions of approval?
Okay, I misread the question. I think that's on a case-by-case basis, because each property is different, each situation is different.
My answers to this question would be that the Bonner County ordinances appear to read to prioritize the public interest, but also that you would need to look at the Chapter 2 and 4 administration and the zoning districts and uses to determine if it has a compatibility with the comprehensive plan. You'd also need to look at the impact on the surrounding areas and then analyze the mitigation of those impacts. I don't read the code to explicitly state that you must deny the application, but if all the negative impacts cannot be mitigated, but I do interpret the ordinance to strongly imply that unmitigated negative impacts are grounds for denial. And I would believe that taking the position a hard no or yes without going through the adequate process of consideration under the code would be grounds for an easy lawsuit against the county.
Joe, can you pass that to Michelle?
I'm going to ask you, could you repeat the question one more time, please?
Yes. When considering a conditional use permit application, should the permit be granted if all of the identified negative impacts cannot be mitigated by adding conditions of approval?
I would also say, no, it should not be granted. And if I believe correctly from our own codes, that if the conditions cannot be met, then it should not be approved, but also enforcement with conditions, who is enforcing conditions and how are those conditions verified for these permits?
Okay. Commissioner Korn, do you want to ask the final question?
If you're appointed to the zoning commission, how would you vote on the following scenario? The applicant indicated that they would like a zone change to allow their property to be subdivided for their children, but the property does not meet all of the requirements for the zoning district the applicant has requested. Would you vote to approve or deny this application?
Cosette, I think it landed in you to go first on this one.
Well, I have been to some of these hearings and I've seen the emotion in a lot of people trying to attempt these minor land divisions. And again, I would say every situation has unique attributes to it, but it seems to have created a big issue in this county. And I would probably find it difficult, but I would probably say no.
Well, to make it easier, everybody, I think
Thank you, Boris.
Thank you, Boris. Yeah, so to make it easier, this should be dealt with the comprehensive plan. So my decision would be based upon the comprehensive plan that is currently at the time.
I think if it meets the ordinance and qualifies for a one-time division for the family use, whatever it's called, and it meets those requirements, you grant it. If it doesn't, you deny it.
Michelle Johnson. In this case, I think that's where the worksheets are coming in very helpful and very valuable, going through and seeing, does this contradict the comprehensive plan? Does this conflict with any of the zoning? And again, case by case, sometimes you cannot treat every single file or application the same. Each one is individual, and there may be different circumstances, but the biggest thing I think is what I'm currently seeing is the utilization of the worksheets.
Joe Mock, could you repeat the question, please?
If you were appointed to the zoning commission, how would you vote on the following scenario? The applicant indicated that they would like a zone change to allow their property to be subdivided for their children, but the property does not meet all of the requirements for the zoning district the applicant has requested. Would you vote to approve or deny this application?
Well, that's a hypothetical. It doesn't tell me what size the property is, what they're trying to change about it in terms of the size of the parcels. So it's a matter of looking at the comprehensive plan and then looking at the county code and making a decision based on what is allowed in the county code. And as has been mentioned, doing the checklist, the worksheets, is absolutely the best way to go about making decisions on zoning changes.
Okay, we've gone through all 6 questions that the board has asked, so now we'll go into kind of a closing for each person, and we'll start with, okay, you weren't going to say anything? Okay, so we'll start with Mr. Boyles and go this direction, 3 minutes each.
All right, thank you, commissioners, for your consideration today and also for the candidates that put their name out here to contribute to their local community. I appreciate each and every one of you. I am here to serve at the pleasure of the board. If I could add value to the county in this process, I'd be happy to do it. It looks like we have several good candidates up here. I would hope you would consider each one and how they could work with you and the existing commission. I may or may not be that person. If I am chosen, though, I will assure you that I would strictly abide by any of the conflict of interest requirements that are both in the code and the state law. And I would, say anything that I had prior to any hearing and make that very clear, and that I would take an unbiased, logical, rational, non-emotional approach to how we apply the Bonner County ordinances to each file and ensure that we're doing it with consistency and transparency and consistent improvement in any way we can, interfacing closely with commissioners and the county attorney as appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dmitry Borisov, all I'm going to say is that I'm going to try to do my best to do my job. How should I say it? That goes in line with objectives and the goals of the comprehensive plan, and would like to do my job diligently so I could give commissioners the best, or the most information that would be gathered during different hearings and investigations so commissioners could make a very good and informed decisions.
Wendy Cosette. First of all, it's really refreshing to have such an open and transparent format. In some of the other things that I engage in the state, it is the complete opposite of open and transparent. So thank you for handling this the way that you have. As I stated earlier, Bonner County is going to grow. So how we manage that growth and do so in an open and honest and unbiased and as fair a way as possible was what I think everyone would like to see. And if I was selected, that's what I would do my best to do.
Thank you.
Joe Mock, and as a zoning commissioner, primarily I would be following county code, I would be doing the worksheets, being consistent, mitigating impacts, and minimizing litigation.
Michelle Johnson, I again would like to thank the commissioners for the opportunity to be here. We appreciate your time. And as stated, there's a lot of great candidates that are here, and I think that shows the interest and the concern to want to have positive change in regards to growth and development. Growth and development absolutely is going to happen, but it needs, in my opinion, to be done reasonably and responsibly. And we need to consider things like infrastructure also. We need to look at our fire, police, all of our additional resources. With a background in QA, I understand the importance of kind of the auditing side, following the check sheets, but also to the professionalism of some discussions are not meant to be had with the neighbors, having that respect for one another, having the ability to agree to disagree because we're all people and humans and we're not always going to see things the same, but trying to do it reasonably and rationally and not get upset, and to follow the codes and ordinances, to represent fellow Bonner County citizens to the best of my ability. And also I do have a degree in planning. It's an old degree, but I would love to get back to using some of that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, it is 3:20, and we've interviewed all candidates for planning and zoning. And so at this time, how about we have the Director of Planning explain the number of seats on planning, zoning, and then the 1 year that's also up, and then we can go over the design of deliberating for the available positions.
So on the planning, Jacob Bell, Planning Director. So we have 3 seats on the Planning Commission, that's A, B, and C. So each seat has a 3-year term on the Planning Commission. These would be effective starting October 1st and expiring September 30th, 3 years later, so 28. On the Zoning Commission, as I mentioned earlier, we had 1 resignation this morning. Mr. Bob Clark, who is the most senior member of that or the Zoning Commission, resigned with an effective date of October 1st. So we have that seat available. That seat currently expires on the 26th, September 30th of 2026. So it would be a 1-year appointment. Similar to Mr. Burkamp, who's currently in seat E, he was appointed November of 24. Yeah, last year. So we have then seats D and E on the Zoning Commission for a 3-year term. Again, those all start October 1st.
So when you said Burkamp, there's 1 year, Burkamp isn't.
Yep. So Mr. Burkamp is on
His expires 9/30/2025.
Correct. So he's expiring now. He was appointed last year, so he's filling a previous vacated seat. So he's applied for the Planning and Zoning Commission, but was unable to make it to the.
So we have then. Okay.
So on your guys' sheet, the highlighted positions on the top are the ones that are open.
Mm-hmm. So does the board want to address planning first? So one of the things that I had talked about, the statute does not require the board to pick evenly across the districts, and so each person must come from a district, and we have to pay attention to the impact. And one of the comments that I had made was trying to do our due diligence to make sure that we're representing across the districts, not packing it with a district, like a heavy district one, especially as we have more people. So that's something that when I'm looking at who's applying, that I'm factoring in is making sure that I'm paying attention to the districts, because in part, the idea behind the intent is that the people in those districts are going to bring forward to the county seat information about what's going on in that area. And so when you look at the Planning Commission, the seats and this doesn't mean somebody from a different district, it's just that's part of what I'm considering is when you look at the current landscape on the Planning Commission, the current commission has 2 seats from District 2, 1 seat from 3, and then there's 4 seats from District 1. And so having an opportunity to take a look at others that want to be on planning, this current setup is heavy on District 1 with a historical across, I think, planning in general, where not many from District 3 actually apply. So that's just one, I wanted to draw attention to that. Not that that trumps a qualified candidate, but that's one of the things that I paid attention to was it's reasonable to take a little bit closer look at districts that people might be coming from. And then I don't think we had anybody that were ACI impact.
The statute has some provisions about the number of seated commissioners on any commission, either within a city limit or within an area of impact, so.
So we're good there.
I think you're fine appointing any of the applicants to the planning commission without running up against that number.
Okay.
Same thing with the zoning commission in this case. We have one that's currently in, you have the information in front of you, but.
So for Planning Commission, we had Dave Bowman, District 3, Reg Crawford, District 2, and then Planning or Zoning option was Brendan Mooney or Larry Madosky, was either or. We have 3 available seats, 2 available seats for planning with one that would be a 1 year, no, 3 available seats that are 3 years each. Okay, so let's start deliberating on our availables and we'll deliberate on all 4 that applied for planning. Is that all right?
Sounds good.
Okay, Dave Bowman. Commissioner Corn?
So I'm not in favor of putting anyone on a board or a commission that has sued the county before. I'm a little concerned about issues going on there. I'm also concerned about seating people on any board that has special interests on that topic. So I can't support that candidate for this position. And I'd also like to say, and I don't know at which point in time would be appropriate, but since we do have 3 open seats and only 4 candidates, I would like to suggest reopening it for more applicants.
Okay. Commissioner Donkey?
So I hesitate to use the litigation. I think it's an important question to consider. But when we understand the background of why litigation occurs, when it's not frivolous, and we have examples, in fact, where the involvement of litigation, I'm thinking of the RV park example, where the board voted unanimously in favor of denying that application, which actually meant that we took the same final position as what Cape Bonner County Rural did. I think we need to consider what it means when that occurs. If there's process that wasn't followed, then, when the court remands something back to the county, that means the county's the one that made the mistake. And so we should take that into consideration, in my opinion. So I don't hold that against someone if they're trying to hold the county accountable to proper due process. The Cape Bonner County Rural, I think if somebody's passionate about a position, anyone who volunteers has a position or a perspective, and if we clearly know and understand what that is, I think that should and can be accounted for. The level of involvement that Mr. Bowman has shown through the planning process for a long period of time now is something I want to acknowledge. And to be honest, the one hesitation I have with considering Mr. Bowman for appointment is more about, at times, how he communicates with members of staff and others. And I want to have a level of confidence that there would be a respectful dialogue and not an accusatory dialogue about people's perceived motives instead of just dealing with the facts. And that's my one hesitation, is just the background of experience of how the communication happens sometimes. I do like the idea of trying to geographically spread out representation as much as we can, because districts kind of represent neighborhoods in a large way, and we know neighborhoods tend to have strong opinions on issues. So to that end, I'm going to go forward with the position that I would essentially be willing to move forward with supporting Mr. Bowman for appointment, with the understanding that I'm acknowledging that I have some concerns about how communication happens sometimes, but I see that as an opportunity. If somebody's on the outside looking in, sometimes it's easy to have a perception that's not true. But if somebody's in the middle of the process, then they have to really own the process and see and understand what that really is. And so I think this could be an opportunity to take the level of effort that this citizen has shown with their involvement and engagement in the process, but also help them own some of the accountability of how they participate and communicate, instead of sometimes assigning motive to folks, which I know I've openly stated I disagree with. So I'm willing, with that being stated, I'm willing to support his appointment, given that there's District 3 representation that we're lacking, and that he has demonstrated to a large part both a level of commitment with involvement and also knowledgeable answers to the questions that were asked.
So I have a similar response. Suing government to hold it accountable is not inherently bad, and in some cases, it's absolutely necessary in order to effectuate that change that's needed. And so I don't want to participate in because you used a right that is given to you, that there's something wrong with that. I don't support that idea. I think that reviewing whether or not it was frivolous and is a way that you judge, well, the intent. And I think in that case and the other case that was brought forward, I think in both cases, Bonner County was shown to be on the wrong end of that. And so do you penalize someone for exposing a need for improvement? I don't think that's the case. I think that there's been a lot of work by Mr. Bowman with respect to our comprehensive plan that actually the county has accepted. And in a lot of dialogue, we have ordinance change based on the granular level that Mr. Bowman has done. I think that I agree that at times there's comments that can be delivered in a different way, but I also have to recognize that from last year when Mr. Bowman applied for this position to this point now, I have paid attention very acutely to the sound of communication. And I think even the Planning Commission and the Zoning Commission have heard Mr. Bowman compliment their efforts and the work that they have done when he's providing what I see as constructive criticism with recognition of how do you deliver a message that can be received. So I see what you're saying with respect to delivery, but I also can say I specifically noticed a change in how frequently he says Commissioner Frankenbach did a good job here, or the planning department did a good job here. And so I think that it's very easily to be on the outside and be frustrated with a process while you're trying to get a change. But I also can say we have codes that have changed because of that diligence. And there is an element of my personality that says, I want you on my team because it helps me move in the right direction. And we're talking about a group of people, when you look at the list of names that are leaving, these are people that have a historical amount of knowledge on planning and zoning that are moving away. We need people that have done that level of due diligence. I think in this interview process, he gave very good answers and responses. And I think that our decisions as boards, which this whole board as a whole has actually accepted some of the work that he has done, is evidence that it's a good fit, noting that I think part of what this board is obligated to do on anybody that is a commissioner, on any board or thing we create, is to address communication, customer services, and things like that. So I also equally feel there is a lack of representation on planning and zoning from District 3, and he comes from District 3. And that I have to give, that was on our past interview, that was one of the things that was, how do we get more of District 3 to come in to our, sorry, everyone looked out at the helicopter with the water bucket. It was, I think that that's an important thing because this District 3 is growing significantly, and that level of involvement, I think, is beneficial. So for the issues brought forward by Commissioner Korn as to why not to seat, I don't see those as reasons. I would come back to Commissioner Korn and ask, do you have specifics with relationship to what the function of the volunteer position is, noting that all of us start a grassroots type of a mission, and then that kind of pushes us for, I want to be here. So do you penalize someone for building something that actually created their desire to be on the board? Noting that he answered the question of conflict of interest. And in part, my understanding of Keep Bonner County Rural is it's addressing concerns that members of the county are bringing forward, asking for, can somebody help me? Not Dave Bowman saying, I'm going after the county for this issue, but that they're working on somebody's file. That's what my understanding of it is. So is there something other than having had litigation with the county or keeping Bonner County rural that gives pause after hearing from the rest of the board?
Yeah, so I would also like to reiterate Commissioner Donkey's concerns. Multiple times during public comment and all his comments that are directed towards Bonner County employees, planning staff, planning directors, I just find inappropriate. And I don't know, I mean, people's personalities are their personalities, and I don't see how that would change if he was in this position. So.
Okay. Do you want to just go to the next name?
Yeah, I think it'd probably be helpful if we walked down through all of them and then came back for a decision.
Reg Crawford was the second interviewee on the planning. Commissioner Korn?
I'll get to go first again.
Look, sometimes you say you never get to go first. Commissioner Donkey.
I found Reg Crawford's answers also to be well-versed and knowledgeable. I see that she resides in District 2, which is also not a well-represented district geographically from neighborhood perspectives. I know she stated an involvement with Project 7B. I understand that that's described as being community education focused. I know that members of that organization have had a lot of involvement throughout the years in the comprehensive plan as far as offering community feedback. And, you know, while we might differ on some perspectives at times, again, I think there's some value in getting some dissenting opinions within the room as part of the discussion. My primary concern or hesitation is that she seemed to offer a lot of hesitation and was deferring to if there were other qualified candidates. And so I'm just a little concerned about the timid nature of the personality being in a public setting in potentially strong discussions that where there's some disagreement going on. And she's just kind of deferred a couple of times to the idea of others being able to potentially take the seat. So what I don't want to do is get into the place where we recognize somebody has good qualifications, but then they're too uncomfortable to actually fill the position.
I actually had the same concern with probably a stronger issue. I felt that she was absolutely qualified, but I didn't feel like she wanted to do it. That was how I took
That's my
her.
concern.
I think that when you hear her discussion, I liked everything she said about water because I feel that's something we need to address. But I also felt like she doesn't want to commit the time, but would if there was no other available option. And that I didn't like. That kind of overshadowed. Reg is very similar in that she has a lot of value input, but is she really wanting to put the time into the planning officially versus when she has the time to do it? And that's my hesitancy, because I don't want to put someone in that's, you'd be a good fit because we shoved you in, versus you absolutely want to be here and you're going to make it work. That was her comment, because if you remember when we started, it was, Dave's here, I defer to Dave, or should I leave or should I not leave? And then how many people are there? I just didn't feel I want to do this and this is the right time from Reg, which I wish I would have, because the water thing for me is something I think that we would benefit from on the planning and zoning aspect. I just equally, that's what she presented to us and she actually made the specific comment that she was hesitant on it. So that was my issue with Reg.
So I share those same concerns. My notes, I wrote down, she's on the fence due to time commitments. And she thinks that Dave Bowman would make a great commissioner, which reiterates what I just heard from both of you, I think. Another thing that I didn't necessarily see eye to eye with is one of her answers on recusing. She would ask that, or she believes that someone should recuse themselves due to campaign donations. And as we all know, in such a small community, that can get very tough sometimes with the amount of donations made to elected officers across the board or to other people. Maybe in a larger community, that might be feasible, but I think there'd be a lot of recusing going on if we got that finite and granular on that specific topic. And then obviously, again, her involvement with Project 7B seems to me like it's kind of more of a leftist type anti-property rights group. And even if it's not to that extent, I still see it as a special interest group. And I'm just concerned about biases. So I don't know, biases have been brought up in the past with board members being realtors. I hear about that constantly. And if we're going to try and get away from that, I think we need to work very hard at getting away from that.
And I'll go back to, I think everybody has a bias. Some people admit it, some people don't. The question is, can we find people that are willing to admit it and have an open conversation about it, and then have that kind of be the iron sharpens iron opportunity within a group, a commission, to challenge one another's ideas. And I believe her reference to the conflict of interest piece was actually where a judge actually reprimanded a commissioner for approving a file where he had received campaign contributions from somebody that had submitted for a land rezone. So that was a court case, I think, that she was referencing, just so you're aware. But again, I think at the end, I think the lack of clear commitment is not a good position to start from.
I didn't mind the comment about the campaign donation, because I think it's a difference of, I think a lot of people have that same question, is, you're donating, so are you, where is that line? I think it's a difference of people recognizing of what does a true conflict of interest mean. Supporting a candidate doesn't make it an inherent conflict. And I think that at a minimum on her end, she's saying out of an abundance of caution, because in part, some people see it as visually, if you vote for this person or you contributed, then you ask to be on a commission. Then are you essentially buying your way by way of a campaign supporter? I don't think that that's what she was meaning, but I think that in a way it was very honest of saying, this feels uncomfortable to know that there's a donation here. I don't know that I would say, and I'll make the same comment about 7B as I would on anybody that says there's a community issue concern. So in my area, we had Southwest Bonner County Coalition. We had land use, and we came together as a group of people to address an issue as a community. Do you penalize a person for being a community activist on an issue that they're passionate about to help your community? I don't think so. I think that it's reasonable to say that that person is going to say, this is a spot where I can have an even greater impact, and here is my resume. That's really what we're building, is a resume through community action, but then saying, because you did it without hiring, then it's negative. I don't find it inherently negative. I don't know that I see land use as left wing or right wing. It's a comprehensive plan and a zoning code. I don't see it as that, but I equally accept the opinion of it is beneficial to have varying perspectives on issues from various angles, because altogether we're trying to build something. But regardless of those comments, for me on Reg, I can't get past, she didn't feel as if she really wanted to do this. To me, and I'll say it more plainly, sometimes people apply because they're worried that not enough people will apply to be seated, and that if we seated qualified people, she would be equally happy to maintain where she is with her level of involvement, because she is not involved in planning. And I don't think not seating her will make her go away. I think that us seating qualified people with the time commitment, she would be equally happy with, to be honest with you. Our next,
What are we going to do with the people that could not show up at the interview today?
they did not get interviewed for the position that we are applying for.
You're correct. So did they just automatically not get considered?
For my opinion is, I'm not considering someone that didn't interview for. And on some of these, they dropped out of the interview process. So that's my position, is this is okay for interviews.
My position is if someone had communicated over the last few weeks that they really wanted to interview but couldn't meet the schedule, then I'd be willing to consider that. But we had no response from a couple of people, including one of the folks who's currently seated, whose term's expiring. And I think there was an initial interest there, but for reasons we don't know, they stopped communicating on that. And so if we end up, my position is if we end up with what we think are enough appropriate individuals to appoint to fill all the current seats, then I think we should move forward with that. And if we feel that we don't have enough, then we should consider reopening for whatever remaining positions we have.
And Wendy Collins, she pulled her application.
There was no response, I believe, if that's,
It's no voicemail available, sent an email is the comment that we have here for her.
Okay.
and then Mr. Lang and Mr. Settle both dropped out today, I believe, or over the weekend, so recently. And Mr. Burkamp, we did indicate, we had flexed the schedule to try to accommodate the fact that he works out of town Monday through Friday, and he had indicated that he could do Zoom if it was 3 o'clock or later, or they could be in person if it was 5 o'clock or later. So we adjusted to put him into the last group to start at 3 o'clock so that he could attend via Zoom, but he didn't, he never got back to us to accept that offer.
Okay.
And I think the planning director sent him a Zoom link just in case he got that and was able to call in to participate today. So I recommend we move forward with those that we've interviewed.
Okay. Brendan Mooney, he applied for planning or zoning. So we'll talk about him twice. Planning. Commissioner Korn.
Brandon. So I thought he was, answered the questions quite well. I think he shows a great motive to be able to sit on this board, on either board, and participate. I think that quite a few of our applicants, not necessarily today, but even in the past, I think people do want to help and volunteer in their community, even though they may not know a lot about the board that they're asking to sit on or be experts. I do commend him for having the initiative for wanting to help and volunteer. And I did not see any negative points to Brandon. So I'll leave it there.
You?
So from regard to the answers to the questions that were provided, I just found that the answer to the cup question was a little less definitive. And I think, again, like the Commissioner Corn was saying, some of that may have to do with a lack of experience there. But I don't want to deter somebody who's interested in pursuing it, who shows an ability to learn and become familiar with a new subject matter. What I perceive as a strong, confident personality could be good in the level of pressure that can occur within these commissions. We certainly we want people to be willing to consider alternatives and change their mind if they're presented with better information, but I don't want somebody to feel that they're going to back down just because of being pressured. And I get the sense that he would not do that. I also like his information he provided about his experience with having done some future planning. It's not associated with land planning, it's associated with infrastructure and other types of business, but the concept of future thinking is still applicable. And so I think also the diversity of his professional experience, including military experience, and that he demonstrated to be able to use a logic path is something that's helpful when we're dealing with these types of issues. So my overall impression of him was a good one. And as we were talking about with the other candidates, from a district perspective, it is District 1, so it's not representing one of the other two districts, but at the same time, I think we should, and it's necessary to work with the applicants that we have. We can't force people from other places to apply.
Good. Okay. I thought that some of the answers to questions were not very strong, but what was very strong in this candidate was a willingness to learn and do the work necessary, and recognition that some of those question answers weren't strong. And so that is something that I took it as some humility of, I'm capable of doing this, here's where I have succeeded, and I'm not going to claim to know everything about it. I think that is an aspect that's beneficial to anything like this, especially as we're changing. I equally did not like the answer to the cup, because that's one of the things that comes up a lot of times. But I also think that there was recognition in the interview of kind of the lack of exposure to things of that technical nature, with a recognition of, but I know I can look it up and understand it at a greater detail. I think that it balances out. There are going to be people here that have been nose to the grindstone on planning all the time, and they know, you can see, I know the answer to that question. And then you have to have those people that are, I'm new to the system, but I have worked in this area, but I can do the work necessary to improve the way in which I answer. So I liked the presentation of humility from the applicant, with the recognition that he knows he's going to have to look stuff up. He's not coming fully vested, and in some ways that can be beneficial when you're forming a new board, to not have people that are coming in already with a design on something, but somebody that's coming in with I'm here to digest it and learn it, because then when they read what's new to them, while they're sitting next to a person who has read it and reread it, it exposes some different areas in something. So I didn't have in as much as there were questions where in my mind I'm like, nope, I know I don't like that answer. It wasn't I can't accept that candidate for that type of an answer. Okay, are we ready to go to the next one?
Sure.
Larry Madowski. I'll go first on him since I keep putting you guys first. I absolutely like the idea of fire on our planning. That is a huge piece for me. And it was, this is an area where we are growing as an area, and some of those things need to be looked at in terms of how we within the county are building, not just how we're asking questions of external people. I think I had a similar on the cup response, but I felt like there's room to improve on some of the questions with more exposure to the field, but I did like the fire was a big draw for me on Mr. Madowski. I mean, I really like that aspect of it. So. And yes, I know Bowman's a commissioner, but he didn't comment on that in his interview at all, so I didn't say anything, so.
Could have said how well he made.
All right, Commissioner Donkey?
So I overall appreciated the answers to the questions that Mr. Medonsky offered. I too appreciate the fire experience. I actually really liked the CUP answer with regard to we should not put conditions of approval that are not enforceable. This is something our board has had to deal with not too long ago when considering, well, actually it goes back to the RV park. There were, if it had been approved, there were already conditions of approval that were recommended that we confirmed we could not enforce, and therefore it does not make sense to create something that we cannot enforce, and it becomes something that I think creates a negative perception both by the permit holder and then the community at large. So it's just a defeating approach. So I appreciate that response. The other thing that I think would be valuable is that he has been experienced as both a member of a board of zoning adjustment and a contractor that is fighting to try to get permits approved. So he's been on both sides of the table, arguing both sides, the side of the municipality and the side of the contractor. And so I think that variety of experience probably would allow him to make arguments when different ideas are being presented to try to understand the pros and cons of the different concepts that are being put on the table, in particular from a planning perspective, and how it might impact down the road when you get into actual zoning ordinances and the application of that in a practical manner. So I see positives from that perspective.
Let me clarify my CUP comment. It was the part where it was like insurance. The
I
comment
see.
about that, it wasn't
Okay.
that part. It was
Gotcha.
in that answer, there was a comment about requiring someone greater insurance kind of thing. And it was more of not CUP-ish, it went outside of that. That's what but I liked the other part on the CUP. Commissioner Korn?
So I'm gonna have a dissenting opinion on the CUP question. He was a hard no. I do believe that it should be on a case-by-case basis, such as Mr. Boyles stated, that it should not imply the grounds for denial. But most likely, in the word "all" in that question is kind of leaves a lot of openness for me for interpretation as far as, is it a minor thing or is it a major thing? And that's where I'd like to hear the answer. It would be similar to a case-by-case basis, or it depends on what all of those negative impacts would be, instead of just a hard no, not knowing what those are. So I did not like the answer on the CUP question. And I did not agree with the answer on number 3, discussing what the comp plan is. His answer was that it is a specific plan and not a broad plan. And the way I see the comp plan, it is kind of a broader 50,000-foot view of what the land use for Bonner County going forward is. So I had issues with those two answers.
Sure, and I think I interpreted that answer differently. When I first heard him use that language, I agreed that I didn't agree with the terminology, but as he described it, what I was interpreting that to mean was that it's intentionally specific to our county and our desires, as compared to so broad that it's not something that helps us define anything. So I just interpreted the way he explained it a little bit differently, I think. But like I said, the initial terms that were used, I didn't agree with, but as he described it in more detail, I saw what I think he was intending with that, and that's why I agreed with it in the end.
I had the same, I balked at first, but then his sentence structure gave definition to the term that he used. When it came to the conditional use permit, I think that comes down to a lot of what our community has that frustration over. The conditions by which you approve, once we've identified what those conditions are, they're looking for us to say those conditions have been met. And I think that's where you got people saying, this is a yes or this is a no, because you either met the conditions or you didn't. The latitude is where we come up with the bouillabaisse of frustrations within the community. And I think that's what some people are trying to address in the way in which they're answering that question, because that has been a point of contention, because then if you listen to some of the applicants, then the question came up of, well, how do you enforce the conditions by which you say is required? Where's that aspect of it? And so when I heard the people that said yes and no, I felt like they were being very specific to the conditions of approval. The questions essentially is telling people, this property has not met the conditions of approval, will you approve it anyhow? That's really what the question is. And some people are saying, well, no, because it was a condition of approval. And I think that's the distinguishing aspect of it. And I think in part, when I hear people give an answer on either side of that, it means that those people are going to come together to recognize exactly what some of the people that said no is, no. If I can't enforce that condition, then it can't be a condition by which it needs to be approved. And yes, it was a condition of approval that has not been met or cannot be met by this person, therefore I cannot agree with this particular change. So I felt like it was providing some consistency and teeth to conditional use permits that in Bonner County people are looking to see, and that if we can't meet a condition in that particular area, then it comes back to, well, what do we do about that? Not that we just change it because somebody wants it when we front load it by saying we can't meet these conditions, because then the next guy comes in and says, well, they got approved and they didn't meet the condition and they didn't meet, so what was the conditional use permit for? It was just paper. So I didn't have an issue with his response on that end.
And I guess I looked at the question differently, because what I'm hearing from you is that if the conditions once set cannot be met, should we approve it? And the way I'm reading that question, it says if the identified negative impacts cannot be mitigated by adding the conditions of approval. So I'm looking at that question as we're talking about the negative impacts that require the cup, right? Not necessarily the conditions themselves.
I think the way I read the question was if I have an obligation to protect my the light spillover from my operation to my neighbor's property, and if the county says you must do whatever, and I can't meet that condition, would you approve it or not? Because when the planning and zoning, we're going through that, they're identifying what the conditions are in that meeting to give that recommendation. Are you voting for it to say, well, I gave Asia this condition, but Asia can't meet that condition, so I'm going to approve it anyhow, even though there's a condition that can't be met? That's what his question is asking. Would you vote yes or no? And it's really asking me to take a stand on the conditions, because then it's not a conditional, because what the definition is, you can do this activity if you meet these conditions. His question is saying, if I can't meet the conditions, will you still vote to allow me the permission to do an activity? And it's really making the commissioners that would be giving that recommendation to us, because we're doing it right now. And I think that in part, the worksheet really does pull it out of, as the board sees it, how many times have we said, well, no, because you didn't meet this? We're asking people to do the same on their end. And what Mr. Modowski's answer is saying is, well, no, because it was a condition of which I needed to support you. So I'm giving you the answer, and whether we like it or not, the answer is not maybe, it is yes, it is no. That's what they're doing. It's a yes or no vote, not a maybe vote. And I think that's a beneficial thing to have. And then if the issue then becomes of, what did they want? What condition was needed? Why wasn't it met? Is it a reasonable condition? And if it is, sometimes the answer is, you can't do it there. That's what we're really asking.
So I'm going to disclose something. The question was intentionally a little bit vague on my part. And I actually value the fact that each person kind of qualifies why they're giving the answer they are, so we can see a little bit more into how they think. And so I think we ended up with a little different response from each person to help us see what their thought process looks like. And I think it's fine that some people interpreted it a little bit differently, because we just were able to see their thought process through it. So, but from my perspective, we have 3 open seats on the Planning Commission. We've had 4 people that were applying that would include being on the planning commission. I personally believe of the 4 people that all 4 of them come at it from a different background of experience and different perspectives, a different thought process and personality, and that's what we want to have when we have a group making decisions, to challenge one another's ideas and come at it from different perspectives. And because we have 4 people that I believe answered questions in a way that none of us felt like completely disqualified them, then I would be comfortable with saying that because Ms. Crawford indicated a lack of confidence and/or willingness to participate fully, since it wasn't clear, I would recommend we move forward with appointing the other 3 applicants based on our review.
I would concur with that, noting that I think that everybody expressed desire that's in line with the mission that is Bonner County. And I think that that's a good starting point. I think that for me, it's the same. Had Mrs. Crawford not had that, I'm not sure it would have been a different probably review of this. But for me, I think that I would seat Dave Bowman, Brendan Mooney, and Larry Modosky to the Planning Commission for the 3-year terms effective 10/1/2025.
I concur with that.
Commissioner Korn?
So I can't agree with bundling them all. I would like to vote individually.
Okay.
And also, it sounds like the board made a decision on placing Brendan Mooney in the Planning Commission and not entertaining the fact that he may be better fit on the Zoning Commission, because he asked to be on either one. So how did that decision come about?
My rationale was we have 3 seats available, and there are 3 people that we could use to fill it with. And it is more administrative of, he was either or, but in part, for me, his comments were actually more towards planning, and that was his background of experience having worked in that. And so when you look at we have our 2.5 seats on the Zoning Commission, there's more than enough to choose from that. And I say the 0.5 because of the 1-year term for someone. I think that it's reasonable to put, to fill the planning with that, especially given that planning oftentimes has more of a load than the zoning does, even though we're going to be shifting to zoning for a little bit. I think to ensure that planning is filled first, for me, is a priority. And since those 2 were planning or zoning, that's why, although if we were going to have a different situation, I would have considered, but given that there was a majority on the Mrs. Crawford's positioning, I think it's reasonable to fill planning. Planning is much busier than zoning.
And that was my general thinking as well. However, before we vote, I would recommend we just finish going through deliberating with zoning as well. And if we, for some reason, felt that of the number of candidates that we have for the zoning commission, that we weren't going to be able to fill all 3 seats with those applicants, then we could reconsider the 2 applicants that we had that said they'd be comfortable doing either one. That might be the best logistical approach.
And I agree that we vote for each one individual. I was just giving a comment just on planning.
But yeah, I just wanted you guys to hear a perspective on
Okay.
the planning commission.
To the Zoning Commission now, there are 2 open seats for 3-year terms, 1 seat for a 1-year term. Okay, Colton Boyles, Commissioner Domke.
So I found that Mr. Boyle's responses, that he was intentionally grounding them by referencing the code and/or the comprehensive plan, which I think is a good starting point. I don't know his background of experience in those areas, but he was taking the time to make sure that that information was relevant. I appreciate his emphasis on the application of the code using a reasoned and logical process. And I felt that he provided really clear and direct answers to all the questions. So I found that all of the responses to be good, and I think that type of logical approach is something that's important on the zoning commission when acting in a quasi judicial manner.
Commissioner Corn?
I would agree with Commissioner Donkey, and I think that he also has tools, if you will, to offer with his trade that he's in, his profession, that may benefit the zoning commission as well.
That actually gave me a question of being an attorney and the county having an attorney, and I don't know what that interface would be because I don't know when that has ever happened to be an attorney on the zoning commission when the zoning is specific for our ordinances, if that would create an issue or not between the prosecutor's office and who represents. There was, I think that he gave good answers, reading from the code. That was one question I had and the time commitment, given the vocation that he's in, that this actually requires was a question for me. But I thought he gave good, well-reasoned answers. One of the questions I had was kind of similar to your CUP one, was I was wanting people to take that a little bit deeper into zoning, and it didn't. And so I didn't actually, on his, I did not like the answer saying that zoning is just it's only what's written in, it's already given me the roadmap, because when you heard the next answer that came from Mrs. Johnson, she went into a little bit more of the meat and potatoes of zoning, of what is it, where does it come from, and what the priorities are. His answer was just reading out of our own code of what was important versus, as you're going through your recommendation, how are you recommending it to the board, and what do you see as important aspects of it, which there's some inclusive of, our comprehensive plan that guides us, your sub-area plans and things like that. I thought that answer was missing some meat there, but otherwise, my question of concern was only the time commitment and then the legal, if that would cause a rub, which that one I did not know the answer to.
I think since we're not asking for legal opinions from members of the zoning commission, I don't see where that would represent a conflict.
I wasn't saying conflict of interest, I mean so there's a difference of conflict of interest versus conflict of two attorneys disagreeing with an interpretation of a rule, because when you're sitting on the zoning commission, it is the opinion of the prosecutor's office that we are relying on for when we're in that quasi-judicial. And so that's the type of conflict the professional conflict that can be, we're both attorneys kind of a conflict, not a conflict of interest of you need to recuse yourself. And I'm not saying that there is, I'm just saying that was a question that I had when I
understand. I intentionally didn't use the term conflict of interest, just conflict. So the reason for that is I would believe that an attorney would know that in this case, the county's legal counsel is the authority that we're looking to make those decisions, and not to attempt to supplant that. So I understand, I think it's good to ask the question, but I don't perceive that as an issue. But I didn't hear anything in the comments from Mr. Boyles with regard to him expressing concerns about a time commitment. So I don't want to interject that unless we heard it from the candidate.
And I'd like to follow up on that. I do think that it is helpful when writing code, to have someone that has some legal experience to help with that is great, because our legal department does not help with writing our code. And I do believe that one of our planning commissioners that has chosen not to reapply is also an attorney. And I have never heard of any issues with him being an attorney and conflicts between him and our county legal department. So
I haven't either. I'm not saying there is. I'm saying that is this is a dialogue of just that was a question that came up. And so, and it's not unreasonable it's no different, like some people lead with, I'm retired, my business is going down. So it's reasonable to say, what is the time commitment? This is a huge time commitment. Not as much for zoning as it is for planning, but it is a time commitment. So it's reasonable to say that that's a question. There's nothing about the presentation from Mr. Boyles that suggests any of those are issues. I'm just voicing in deliberation that those are the only things that came forward, but his answers were in line with what the comprehensive plan and the zoning code are. But those are reasons, we have a number of candidates that we have to look at, and I'm trying to be objective of each one that's presented. And to be clarified, there's never been a comment even about Alan, who was already seated as an attorney. But that doesn't mean that people don't have questions that say, is that a possible issue? We're going to be, on a more probable than not, changing who's working with the planning department as a different attorney. And so it's just a question of, would that pose an issue?
Sure. And actually, if it was the planning commission that he was seeking to be seated on, it would potentially create more of that scenario, because it's actually the planning commission that's the quasi-legislative that's ultimately making any recommendations for Title 12 that would include changes to the zoning. Whereas the zoning commission, it sounds confusing, but they're actually just doing the quasi-judicial review of applications.
So I'm not confused. I'm going based on how people from both of these commissions kind of leapfrog over the two, and the access to the county is what has people, there are people on planning commission that they want to go over to zoning and vice versa. They still give their input. And so that's one of the things community has made comments of, and we have had to have the legal opinion of, yes, people can sit on these commissions, but they can still give a public comment of their personal opinion on something. That doesn't stop people from giving their opinion on something. So there is an element that I'm just saying, that was a question. I'm not saying it's an issue that says someone doesn't get seated, but it's a reasonable question. But there was nothing about his presentation that said there's a negative about it. It's just, there's a time commitment that exists with this job, and a comment made on that. Dmitry Borisov. Commissioner Domke, do you want to go first on Dmitry?
Sure. So I did find that a number of the questions the answers seemed to maybe miss the mark with what the question was asking. They just seemed to be a little bit off topic or a little vague at times. And so I'm not as comfortable with the completeness of the answers to the questions that were given. I appreciate the desire to volunteer and want to help the community with the long-range aspects of impacts to applications. But I just didn't feel like the responses were as strong in this case.
I had the same position on questions, especially on the cup question. It's dependent, and I think that was kind of the same for me on the cup question. It was too wishy-washy, let's see, when there's a process by which we do the cup. And in this interview, it was stated the prior run to be a commissioner, but with some focus on planning and zoning, so I had expected more substantive answers and it did feel a little bit not as detailed, not as thorough as it could have been, but I particularly didn't like the cup answer on that applicant. Commissioner Korn?
So I know Dimitri struggles a little bit, and there's a language barrier going on. It's obvious. I think that's not a reason to deny. He has been interested, and I've known Dimitri for a few years, and he does seem to care about the land issues and all. I didn't have any issues with any of his questions other than number 3. How do you evaluate and propose impact? Oh, that's not it. 3. What is the difference between zoning and land use planning? And economic development was the answer. And and this might be getting back to what you two are kind of saying, is not really full answers and kind of, I'm not sure what it is. I'm not sure if it's a lack of knowledge or if it's still the language barrier. You struggle to find words, so I don't know exactly what it is. So
On that one, I actually thought he gave a good answer on that one.
course.
Because on that one, he pointed back to the code and the definition on that one very specifically, and he did make a comment on economic development in there. And I noticed that even after Dimitri gave his answer, then someone else co-signed saying that that was a good answer. I thought that answer actually was the most succinct to the point answer that was given. It was the other ones. And I don't know, because I can't, and I will say one of the things, I did not interject what I think you were trying to say. I listened to what was said in the interview, and that's what I am judging on. And so I'm intentionally in saying that because I think that there might be greater knowledge about the topic, but this is an interview process, and the interview requires you to bring that forward to the whole group, because in part, that is the whole reason that this is open, so that people can judge what are the answers that are given. So I can't implant what I know that I've had a conversation with you having said, I need you to present the interview to the board and to the public. And so for that, I have to critically review the questions asked and the answers given in this setting, not in a different setting. Noting that I believe that you know more about this topic than you gave in answers, but I can't give that answer for you by way of getting the interview.
Yeah, I have that's very similar, because I've heard in other venues him speak about these topics in more detail. But I just struggle with some of the answers today.
And I think this venue actually allows for people to see how are people asking and answering questions, and how do you improve on it when a seat comes open? Because I wholeheartedly believe that you know more about this topic than, because I've talked to you about it. I just need you to interview that way. Anything further on Dimitri? Joe Mock. Commissioner Korn.
Joe Mock, I don't really have a strong opinion either way. It seemed like a lot of the candidates had a lot of the same answers, and that might be because the poor guy that has to, or gal, that has to go first to answer the question, everyone else has an advantage, if you will, preparing your answer. So there's nothing to me that really stood out. At the same time, there wasn't really anything that was like detrimental either. So I know that's kind of a not a very good answer, but that's my opinion right now.
Okay. Commissioner Dumke.
The things I keyed on in the answers from Mr. Mock were the desire to promote consistency of the process that's used and the outcomes that are created from that. As he and others talked about, the use of the reasoned decision-making worksheet. And again, I think that's something that resonates for me, because it's really important to me that we try to be as consistent as possible with our decisions, trying to follow the same type of thought process, logic path as much as we can, so that every applicant has a reasonable assumption of what the outcome is going to be based on the way our code is written and how we interpret it, especially until we improve it. So I appreciated those answers, found value in those answers, and I didn't have any negatives with regard to the responses that were given.
On Mr. Mock, I appreciated the way in which the questions were answered with a level of, the answer is no, and this is why it's a no. I think that on some of the things that we see, we're not getting, there's room for having opinions that really follow the rules without, it's not up to my interpretation or what I would like to see, but it's what does the code tell me, and then that's the answer. And I found that to be a beneficial tool, whereas equally there are going to be people that are a little bit more flexible with that, but I think we need some people that are going to say this is what the code says and this is the direction. I will say in terms of interviewing, I I think there was, like on the cup questions, his answer was no, and he passed the microphone, which that's very definitive what the answer is. But it also, there was opportunity to give an explanation of why is it a very straight no, and explaining to the public. And that, if I were going to say a critique, is this setting is for the public to see how you come to make decisions. And I think that there was an opportunity that could have occurred to explain why is it a very confident no, because in the person's mind that does that, they already know why it's a no. But in an interview process, you're trying to convince me that your no is correct, and you're trying to convince people that misinterpret the rules, don't know the rules, they only know what they want. And with that comes a need to explain a little bit more. So that's what I liked the no, but I equally thought my no could have come with some, this is why I know I'm right, kind of a situation. So that was my critique on Mr. Mock. Anything further?
Nope.
All right, Michelle Johnson. Do you want me to start on her? Do you guys want to start? Commissioner Korn?
Have the honor.
I liked Michelle's interview. It was rooted in rules and the law, which I liked. I also liked the experience in planning. I think that it allows for a bridge. I like the communication and understand, and I think that it was a good way of interviewing. There was answers given with some explanation and substance that supported why answers were given, which I really liked about the interview. But also an understanding of there are times when this is just the rule, and then there are times when we have to review it. But in a presentation of she could do both. I think that that was beneficial, but I really liked the delivery of it wasn't just a short answer. There was explanation, and you got to see how decisions would be made. And arguably, in some, I thought maybe you could do planning, but you picked zoning. That was a question with the way that you answered had more substance than sometimes zoning is. There's just nothing else to do, and then you end up where they don't do anything for a long period of time. But I did like the interview. I thought you gave very good answers, and even if I disagreed with an answer, I understood where you came from, which I think is also important on either of these. So that was my position on Michelle. Commissioner Korn?
I appreciated the fact that she comes with some planning experience, sounds like. Other than that, I didn't see anything that stood out, but I do appreciate the fact of your knowledge there.
Commissioner?
I think that Ms. Johnson indicated that she seemed well-versed in the county code and process, and provided well-rounded answers. And I'm guessing some of that's based on the passion and involvement, and some of that may have something to do with that dated planning background that she mentioned. I'm not positive. But I do think it was well-articulated. So I found the answers overall to be pretty strong answers.
Okay. Wendy Cosette? Commissioner Domke?
For Wendy Cassette, I also thought that the answers were good. Sometimes they were a little more brief. The only constructive feedback I have, other than some of the answers being a little bit more brief, but it goes back to, I understand when you're the third or fourth person to answer the same question sometimes. It's can be difficult to expand on if you feel the same way. Just a little lack of assertiveness has been coming through in how you've answered the questions and just kind of the overall demeanor during the interview. And so I'm just a little bit hesitant to try to better understand how assertive you might be in the commission group setting when deliberating or discussing issues.
Commissioner Korn?
So for myself, I wish there could have been more of an answer on number 4, the key components of the zoning ordinance. I think there's a lot more to it than just health and safety of the citizens. So I wish you would have expanded and elaborated a little bit more on that maybe. That was really the only thing that kind of stood out in my mind.
I was very similar to, you came across very timid, and that can be nervousness in an interview. But I also thought, I guess I have a different view of people being asked the same question in the same room means a good interviewer knows how to elevate their answer because you've heard someone give an answer that was lackluster or the same thing in a way that pushes you above the pack. I think that some of the answers could have had more substance to it. I think your answer on the cup was it depends on the situation. And I think for those answers, I had a little bit more of an angst on because there is a process. But I think equally she presented that for the areas, there was recognition that she didn't know and some things, and that she had looked up some things, but a willingness and an availability to continue to research the things that are in that. Zoning is different than the planning in terms of that time commitment. And so for even with the timid issue, I think that it's not the same impact as on the planning side of timidity, just because the level of community stuff on planning is greater than on the zoning side. But I thought that the questions were answered, but there could have been more substance, but I didn't like the it depends on situation response on the conditional use permit. So that's going through all of those. So we have 2 seats on the zoning that are 3 years with 1 seat that is 1 year that will then go up for its full 3 years after that 1 year. If we take the approach of who is the top, as we look at for planning and zoning, for the, knowing that there are 2, and I'll start with Commissioner Korn since you are to the left. Brendan Mooney and Larry Medusky put planning or zoning. There are 3 planning seats. Do you feel that either of those candidates should be considered for zoning with what we have deliberated on in the zoning group that only wants to be zoning?
No, I don't think so. As I stated when we first started the deliberation on this, that's why I think it would be nice to open it up again and get a few more applicants instead of making it work with what we got. So.
For me on that, we have in the planning application, you have 5 people that have applied, and
You mean the zoning?
the planning, in the planning
we have
section.
4.
You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm counting, if you said planning or zoning, I'm counting that. Wendy applied and withdrew.
Right. That left Dave Bowman, Rich Crawford, Brandon Mooney, and Larry Medowski.
She still applied, so I'm counting, we put it out, and we have 5 people that.
Oh, I see
Yeah.
what you're
Still
saying.
counting.
Sorry,
Yeah.
okay.
No,
I
there
thought
are
you were just referring to those that interviewed, sorry.
not interviewed. You have 5 people that applied. When you look historically on who applies for these commissions, it's not that many people. And so I equally think when 5 people apply, it's a disservice to 5 people to hold an interview and say, wait and come back again. We want to see if there are available applicants here. I think that this notice went out, and I think this board did a very good job of, we increased communication about open board seats. We said it every single Tuesday. We made sure it was published per statute, but we reminded everybody on Tuesdays. To me, it's not a reasonable approach to say, I want to see if I can get somebody other than one of the 4 available, noting that Wendy's withdrew her name, when this is by far the biggest list of applicants for planning and zoning that I think we've had on one setting. So for me, if the request is to put this back out for planning, my response is no. We have applicants that showed up to be interviewed for this, and I think that there's an ability to seat 3 people for the planning commission out of the available 4 applicants.
I share that perspective. I think it would be a disservice to those who applied, and we do struggle to get applicants, and so I'd rather not delay having a full commission to carry the work forward, because we just don't know if we're going to get interested parties who are going to show up and actually go through the interview process and see it through.
Anything else? Okay, all right. So Commissioner Korn has no issue with saying that Brendan Mooney and Larry Madowski would go into planning and not considering for a zoning appointment, given that they said either or. And so we're going to vote on each one individually, so we want to just go down to the zoning.
Sure.
Okay. So zoning has 2 positions for the 3-year, 1 position for 1 year, effective 10/1/2025. So do we want to say the top 2 of each of us for the zoning commission?
For the 3-year commitment.
For the 3-year commitment, yeah.
My top 2 would be Mr. Boyles and Mr. Borsov.
My top 2 were Joe Mock and Michelle Johnson.
And my top 2 are Mr. Boyles and Mr. Mock.
Okay. So there's a 1-year seat available on the zoning commission. Would the board consider Michelle Johnson for the 1-year seat?
Yes, I would.
Commissioner Korn?
I'm going to abstain from that.
I would support Johnson for the 1-year seat. So based on deliberation, the current reading is Planning Commission, Dave Bowman, Brendan Mooney, Larry Madowski. Those are 3-year terms. On Zoning Commission, it would be Colton Boyles, Joe Mock for 3-year terms, with Michelle Johnson for a 1-year term.
That's my understanding.
And then I will pause and say, Michelle, are you okay with that? Because you were, okay. And then after that 1-year term, it opens up for the 3 years. Okay.
And before the board votes, I think it might be valuable just to restate the level of commitment that's being asked of each of the applicants if they're appointed, with regard to the fact that these are primarily evening commitments, and that they can occur sometimes, not frequently, but we've experienced now sometimes it can be multiple evenings throughout the month, not just 1 or 2. And at times, while it's understood that not everyone can attend, even there have been some normal business hour requests to participate in hearings or workshops with the board. And so it's a pretty significant ask for volunteers. And I just want to be completely clear about what that is before we move forward with voting to seat people.
And with respect to, as we're working on the comprehensive plan, we're working on zoning, that has increased meetings outside of those files. And so that's important to be engaged with as well. Can I ask you to grab the microphone and state your name, please?
Brendan Mooney here. I do travel a bit for work. May I zoom in? That's the only, it has to be in person? I don't know when I travel sometimes. Is that appropriate?
Zoom has been used by other commissioners of both commissions.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions regarding what Commissioner Domke put forward? All right. At this time, we will move towards voting.
Okay, I move that the Planning Commission seats A be filled by Dave Bowman for a 3-year term, seat B be filled by Brendan Mooney for a 3-year term, and seat C be filled by Larry Madosky for a 3-year term. I'm sorry, you wanted to do these individually?
Yeah.
I apologize.
I was gonna wait till you were done.
Well, if there's no second, guys.
Just,
How long were you gonna let me go?
But the other thing, though, is that this will come on a Tuesday meeting
Yeah.
and we'll actually vote for it.
That's true. We're
Yeah.
just coming up
So-
with what we want to
Yeah.
prepare for the,
Yeah.
So the action item is
So-
to direct staff to draft resolutions to, per your
I didn't want to
discussion, so-
interrupt you either, since you were going
We're
through.
not
guys can all
appointing
let
them
me
today,
embarrass
but it will
myself
be-
long.
No, I just didn't want to interrupt you, but that we vote for it on Tuesday, so you're asking, your direction is to what you want staff to do.
Yeah.
And so the direction can be generic such that it says that you want staff to prepare the motion individually for each seat, so that the commissioners are voting on each individual person.
Sure.
And present it at the next business meeting, which will not be this Tuesday because the board is not here on Tuesday.
I move to direct staff to prepare for the board at the next scheduled business meeting, a motion to seat A of the Planning Commission as a 3-year term to Dave Bowman, seat B of the Planning Commission as a 3-year term to Brendan Mooney, seat C of the Planning Commission as a 3-year term to Larry Madosky, seat seat A of the Zoning Commission as a 1-year term to Michelle Johnson, seat D of the Zoning Commission as a 2-year term. Oh, 3-year term to Colton Boyles, and seat E of the Zoning Commission as a 3-year term to Joe Mock.
So I'm still unclear. So we're voting to approve that as a block.
No, you're voting on a direction to the planning director to prepare it to bring it to a Tuesday meeting. And so he's going to bring it as each individual person. That's why Commissioner Donkey told you the seat and the number of years. So then they'll bring it on a Tuesday meeting, individual names, individual seats. So you have the opportunity to say yes or
So we'll vote
no.
on a business meeting?
Yes, it votes on a business meeting.
So I guess it'll be the Tuesday after we return from Boise.
Correct.
Okay,
2 weeks from tomorrow.
all right.
All right. Is there a second to the motion directing planning staff to draw up the document?
Second?
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any comment from the public on the motion on the table?
So you want 6 separate resolutions, is that on here?
Yeah, he does.
Give it to Alex.
Short timer. All right, any comment from the public on the motion on the table? Further deliberation by the board? I will just make the comment that I think this was a much more transparent way of putting people forward, and I think that it's uncomfortable at times because you have to give comments, but that means that we're doing a good job in local government. So thank you for the patience and everybody applying and coming, and those who are on YouTube watching but not wanting to be seen on Zoom, because I bet you there's people out there. So roll call vote.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes?
Commissioner Donkey?
Yes.
Commissioner Thorn?
Yes.
All right, motion passes. It is 4:42, and this meeting is adjourned.
And thank you again.